Welcome, everyone. This is Andre's Restart. Hopefully, you can hear me. Hopefully, you can see me. And hopefully, you can also hear my co-host, Brandon. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, doing well. Ready to talk
And-
some Nintendo, as always.
Yeah, we got a lot of Nintendo to discuss this time. And we have a special guest, friend of the channel, Sunbro from Sunbro Nation. How you doing, buddy? I can't hear you.
Hey, you told me to be quiet, and I muted my microphone. So
I appreciate that. No, thank you.
That's on me. No, thanks, Andres and Brandon for inviting me on. I'm excited to talk about some of the, surprisingly interesting topics. We were talking a little bit before the show that it's Nintendo news is in an interesting place right now, but we actually have some good stuff to dive into. I think because according to you, we're just talking about what all has happened in the Nintendo world this last week, and that seems surprisingly a lot. Yeah.
I mean, thank you for pretty much with the alley-oop here for introducing the topics because, I'll tell you, we're gonna have this might become a weekly topic, hopefully not for much longer, but we are going to have the weekly Switch to Hopium category, of course, right? But we also have to talk about Sakurai's new game. The creator of Smash Bros. And Kirby has essentially announced or teased a new game. What could it be? We're getting into that tonight. We're also going to be talking about Pokemon leaks. The leaks continue, and oh boy, are they crazy. They do factor into the Switch to Hopium category as well, so these topics may end up being next to each other. We'll see how things shake out. But we got a lot of Pokemon leaks to discuss. Literal footage has come out. Like, it's just kind of insane. Like, I thought things were dying down, but no, they got crazier. So we got a lot to discuss for that subject. But also, we have another topic that's kind of a big deal, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room now for those who are perhaps curious. Yes, I uploaded a video early yesterday morning. Yes, it was out there for about 11-ish hours. And yes, I intentionally blurred all the footage extra so. Like, you could barely make out anything except for colors. And yet, despite that, Nintendo still issued a takedown. And that's why the video is no longer public. I'm not in trouble. Everything's fine. The channel's not impacted in any negative way outside.
They didn't give you a strike.
No strike or anything like that. But
that's good.
I did wreck my sleep schedule to make sure to get that video out at a reasonable time. Like I saw it and I stayed up to do it. And then I was like, oh, I probably should censor this. So I spent time editing it to make it look kind of nice. And then I was like, oh, well, now I have to blur all of it. So all that work is gone. And now the video is no longer out there. But I will tell you that I have something planned tomorrow that will, I think, do a good job with summarizing a lot of things that have happened and analyzing. There's going to be some surprises tomorrow as well. But I'll make this right. But anyways, we will be discussing this. I don't think they're going to take down the live stream if we just talk about it, but there will be no footage. It will not be blurred. It'll just not exist. But yeah, we're going to talk about that playtest program and how Nintendo has this secret but not secret MMO that where people are going to start playing tomorrow, which is kind of crazy. And we'll also at least touch on, I don't know how much we'll speak on this, but I think it is a big issue. Mario and Luigi Brothership has leaked, and in record time, apparently. Like 3 weeks in advance, something like that.
Yeah,
so it's pretty crazy.
18 days, I think, when it first was spotted, like, out and available on the street. And then now, as of today, it's like the ROM is confirmed to have been passed around online. So, crazy.
It's crazy. So, yeah, those are 5, I think, pretty hearty, good, interesting topics. So, we're in for an interesting discussion tonight. Jumpmon in the live chat says, I saw DK on the thumbnail. You did. And why, you might ask? Well, maybe it's just because he's a Nintendo character and I put random Nintendo characters into a thumbnail. Maybe. Or perhaps it's a hint towards where I want to take this conversation at some point tonight. We shall see. But on that note, let's check in with the live chat for a couple of minutes and then we'll dive into the topics here. So, scrolling through, I see that Gerald Tolkien added me earlier. Agree or disagree, Nintendo is the weirdest, most enigmatic company on the face of the earth. I am convinced their marketing decisions are made by throwing darts at a dartboard. I think I'm at least gonna semi-agree. I think they're
Right.
one of the weirdest companies in the world. They definitely feel like the weirdest to me, but I also pay attention to them more than most other companies. Let's say maybe we could say they are one of the most known companies to also seemingly operate in a very eccentric manner.
Yeah, I'd
That's
agree
fair.
with that. That's very fair.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to their the same way that we kind of see them do their own thing in the gaming space. They do their own thing in the marketing space too, and with how they reveal their announcements. Just because something makes sense on paper and a timeline makes sense, and you think for sure it's got to be this is what they're building to. I feel like they enjoy being different. Like they know they're so different than everybody else, and just when people think they have something figured out on them, they throw a curveball. They like doing stuff like that. I'm convinced.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, just look at Alarmo.
Oh, yeah. Everybody is on the edge of their seat for some kind of Switch 2 hardware reveal, and they come out with an alarm clock. Yep.
Yep.
That's Nintendo.
Yeah. It's strange, to say the least. But moving on with the chat here, Connor asking, "Hi Andres. Okay, so I saw Sakurai's The End video, and I noticed that Sakurai's working on a new project. So I wonder if it's Smash Bros. Kid Icarus or something Kirby." Those are all fantastic choices for what it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will save my deeper thoughts on this until we get into the topic. But yeah, I think those are all good guesses. Connor also says, "Also, look, I think Switch 2 has to be the next year in 2025 because I don't know if it could happen tomorrow or Thursday." Well, I don't want to dig too deep into the topics yet, but I will say that, I think a lot, Sunbro, I think you're on the same page as me here. It's either this week or next week or bust.
Agreed. If we get to November, my stance is if we get to November 5th and it doesn't happen, like if they hold another investors briefing and they're not answering any questions about their successor console, there's no way it's coming out. They would have done it before then, I feel like,
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could technically lengthen the window slightly because the investors meeting's on November 5th. So we have this week, next week, and the Monday or Tuesday
Yeah.
of the week after.
And they would almost, and it'd be so weird because they would almost have to do that if they were going to do a Monday morning reveal. I guess they could do it same day and do it in the evening, but I would feel like they would do they would have to do that Sunday evening announcement for a Monday morning reveal.
Kind of like the Museum
4th.
Direct.
Yeah, kind of like the Museum Direct, which was weird for them to announce something on a Sunday. So they could do that, but I really think the week of Halloween at this point, to me, looks like the most likely if it's 2024.
Yeah. And we'll dive a little bit further into that a bit later. Brandon, I'm assuming you have pretty much the same thoughts.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Okay. Let me read this. I always want to. Well, I'm gonna take a little hopium here. B Skull says, or Beskull. Feel free to correct me on the pronunciation. "I think there could be a mid chance that it gets revealed this week, but I'm not trying to make any bets. But I'm pretty sure I know what Nintendo is doing. Stay tuned for tomorrow, or I should say the rest of this week," with 3 winky faces and then a shh emoji. Well, I'm hoping. We'll see. I'm also not hoping, like, the video I planned tomorrow, like, if Nintendo announces Switch 2 tomorrow, it'll kind of, like, completely devalue that. Like, it's kind of like whatever video we do on the day Nintendo makes the announcement is just not going to matter unless they make the announcement at night, and then at least the video has the day to kind of have the spotlight, whatever topic we decide to cover, and then, but that's me just being selfish. Let's see here. Velociraptor Ghost asked me, "How are you doing?" How am I doing? I'm doing okay. My eye's been a little agitated. You probably can't tell. I don't know. Might have to get it checked, but otherwise I'm okay. So I'm good. But yeah. Hello there, Having Hope. Hello there, Nish Quick Pops. 2NA. Praise the sun. Yeah, let's praise the sun. Hello there, Sam Talks Games. Ethan Presley, 2024 launch for Nintendo Clock Alarmo. That already happened. Yeah. Thank you, Nishwick, for letting me know that everything sounds good. I appreciate that. Thank you, Having Hope. Appreciate it. Nishwick, is asking you, Sunbro, have you been playing Metaphor?
Oh, no. I've not picked it up yet. So I have a quick story on the new games that I've gotten. So, or in the process of getting. I'm picking up Mario Party Jamboree physically. I've been to 3 different stores that have all only carried the physical edition with that freaking 3-month Nintendo Switch Online print on the box.
Why'd you have to go to 3? You can't. You haven't been able to find it.
Yeah. Every single retailer I've been to has only had the ones that have the online print on the box.
You don't want it.
I don't want that one. I want they're selling both right now. So there's some that have the online included printed on the actual cover, and there's others that don't. But anyway, all of that to say, I'm still at the very tail end of Echoes of Wisdom. And while Metaphor is attractive to me to get into, I also have not spent time in the Persona series. And my understanding is that those are a heavy time commitment. So I will probably, if I get around to it, it'll be later on.
Sitting on it. Yeah. There's
looks
a lot of
great,
hype
though. Oh, yeah, looks great. Review scores, check out. I mean, everything that people are saying about it online makes me want to go get it right now.
Everybody I've ever heard talk about it is like, this game is the best game ever. I'm like, dang, okay. Might have to check it out.
But, a couple of weeks ago, people were saying that about Astrobot, which is what I'm playing currently. So
that's another one. Yeah. I'm like,
I do really want to play
6 hours into it, and I still have so much further to go.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not as sucked in as I would be, say, like Mario Odyssey, or maybe I'm just older now, so I got more going on. I can't just allow myself to play for like 6 hours a day. But I think I'm more than halfway done with Astrobot. Like, you have to get like 300 of the little dudes. I'm close to 200. Maybe I passed 200 recently, but I'm around there, right? So give or take somewhere between a half to 2/3. So I'm working on that, but I've already beaten Echoes of Wisdom. I enjoyed that game. It's a good time. So I want to finish Astrobot, and by that point, it'll probably be time to play Brothership. So,
yep.
Let's see here. By the way, guys, if it wasn't obvious, Sunbro's channel is linked in the description below. Please make sure to go check him out. He is one of the best Nintendo YouTubers, so definitely go check him out, and it's a good time. But
too kind, Andres. I wouldn't put myself in the best Nintendo YouTuber category. That belongs to you, buddy. But thank you.
I appreciate that. You're too kind. But complimenting aside, let's jump into the topics. So I just mentioned Brothership, and so let's go into that. First topic of the night: the brothers sinking ship. And when I say that, I don't think Brothership is actually going to sink. I think it's going to be totally fine. I simply mean that, it is unfortunate that the game was leaked 3 weeks or 18 days in advance, which I can't think of. I think Tears of the Kingdom was about a couple weeks.
Just under 2 weeks, I think, for Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 12 days. I don't know. I don't remember the exact time, but that give or take, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this was leaked even further in advance, and I mean, I'm not too concerned about seeing spoilers for Brothership, right? Like, this doesn't feel as insane as when it happened for Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom was like, the entire media cycle, right? But the fact this is happening, though, is still an issue, and this continues to happen. I personally don't like it, because we do talk about rumors and leaks on the channel, but it's about things that aren't the entire game and ROM being loaded out there for people to play and just spoil everything, right? Like a week or two in advance. We like to talk about things that are like interesting clues or hints of like puzzles that we can solve, right? That don't really impact the game in any negative way. So it's a totally different beast, and I imagine Nintendo's going to try and do something about this with the next generation. I don't know what it is that they're going to do, but they can't continue just to let this happen forever.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
I was just gonna say, I mean, as far as spoilers goes, like it doesn't really matter too much, because I don't think this is the type of game where I'm like, oh my gosh, the plot that's really the core, excuse me, the core driver of this game, like something like Zelda. Like, no, it's not. So spoilers, I don't think this is gonna be too bad on, because I don't think people will care. But for me, it's like, I really hate that this game is available for free right now. Just because, like, I really want this game to do really well. Like, we haven't had a Mario and Luigi game in so long, and just the fact that you can just go play it for free and you don't have to buy it. It's like, man, I don't think it will impact sales too much, because I feel like the hardcore Nintendo fans, like, they don't care about piracy. They're gonna buy the games legitimately anyways, even if it is available. So hopefully it sells just fine. But yeah, that's for me. It's just like, I hope this doesn't impact the sales, because I hope this game does well and they continue to make new Mario and Luigi games going forward, because there was such a big gap.
Yeah, I mean, I usually don't worry too much about sales. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think it's kind of like, obviously, you want to limit piracy, right? Because it does affect your bottom line. But, you know, having worked with like different like companies in the past where there was merchandise that could be stolen, there's always like a certain amount of lost product that's kind of assumed per month, and it's not so like if there's like unaccounted for product or money, it's not like, oh my god, who stole it? It's more like, why is that so high? We need to make sure that's smaller, because it's just kind of one of those things where piracy is just so commonplace. It's expected to happen, and companies, at least from my perspective, right, the companies I've been with, look at it more of a trying to minimize it as much as possible. You can never fully eliminate it. So we look at something like the brothership situation. It's absolutely bad. It's not great for limiting it, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that there's always going to be people that are going to find a way to pirate it, and I wonder if, like, I think it's going to make a difference in terms of sales, but I feel like the difference will be, at least for us, the fans, we kind of look at like how many millions sold, ultimately negligible. I hope.
Hopefully, that's what I think as well.
Like,
but
I don't think I don't think 500,000 copies are gonna be pirated here. Like,
probably not.
No. So.
No, and I'm less worried about it impacting sales at all. I'm more worried about this trend of all Nintendo's first-party content being out there and available weeks early. That's going to cause them to like maybe overcorrect
exactly
on a physical games release strategy. Okay, so like, I don't know. I mentioned this in tomorrow's video briefly because it is somewhat tied to Brothership, but actually it's entirely based around Brothership. But I was talking about like the fact that I'm more worried that Nintendo might go further than what, because I don't know if you guys have ever looked into this whole Walmart and Amazon. You can't pre-order first-party Nintendo games on anymore, which is really interesting. That those are and that just happened. You may or may not remember the stories with Walmart crediting back pre-orders of Nintendo Switch games, and people were screenshotting it and saying like, Walmart's refunding my pre-order, and they're saying,
yeah,
because like the way the email was worded, it was like, because of Nintendo, they don't have that stock for pre-order, so it's going to be available in store on the day the game launches, and that they would offer a $25 credit for inconvenience. So it's like, obviously Walmart didn't want to do that. Around the same time, Amazon pre-orders for first-party games stopped being available, and maybe that's not for every game, but I know there was a few that were coming out still at the time that I like searched and verified myself, and this was months back when that Walmart stuff was going on. But Target, Best Buy, and I think even GameStop, you can still like reliably pre-order from. But I just would hope that we don't see Nintendo shift to this, you know, kind of physical afterthought type of thing. Like, we have to release the physical versions of the games like a week or two after. You know, I don't think they'll necessarily do that. I think they're just going to fix their own problem with the next gen hardware. But if this was to continue to be a problem in the next generation, I could see them doing something like eShop day one and, you know, physical release a week later or 2 weeks later. I don't know.
Metroid Prime Remastered was the mold for future of Nintendo.
Well, they were fine with doing it with that. They were fine with doing it with Pikmin 1 and 2, and Pikmin 1 and 2 came out like quite a bit later.
Yeah.
So they've tested the waters with remakes and remasters or ports, but they have not done it in a big first party capacity. But I don't think that means it's off the table. So
right. I'm also worried that they just are going to want to ditch physical media as quickly as possible. I don't think it's going to be a problem with the original, like the first version of the Switch 2, because I think that's probably already set in stone to have a cartridge like reader. But you know, who's to say that later variations won't just be all digital? And then, you know, that Mario game, the new Mario Kart, the new 3D Mario, the new Zelda, it's all going to be $60, $70 forever. Maybe you'll get a sale. Luckily, you'll get a sale every once in a while, but otherwise, you know, if Nintendo goes all digital, it's just going to be super expensive constantly.
And I hope they won't. And I don't think that they'll necessarily, because they are one of the companies that, you know, obviously in Japan and then even just around the globe, I feel like their physical game sales are higher than that of Sony and Microsoft, obviously. Like, I think they'll be the last one to ditch physical as an option.
Yeah, probably.
I can see them heavily prioritizing digital with, like, we're already seeing it with the game voucher program. You pretty much can pick up Tears of the Kingdom and another $60 game for $100, so you can potentially save $30 on first party games from Nintendo when you purchase two together. And, you know, do they do more incentives like that? Do they do more aggressive sales? And then if you have all that stuff going on with simultaneously, like they're releasing physical games later than the drop on the eShop with certain titles. I'm not saying they'll do it with everything, but if they do it with enough, like how many people are just going to say, screw it, I'm making my Nintendo library digital? So,
well, I mean, you know, I kind of recognize it may not be the most celebrated way of doing things, but for the most part, I've been getting most games digitally for my Nintendo Switch for some time now. Like at first, I bought mostly physical, but it's one of those things where the convenience factor has just become so much more important for me. Well, part of it is for content creator reasons, right? Like I want the game as soon as possible. So what's the fastest way to do it? Have it preloaded onto my console already. So the moment I can legally play it in my region, I'm playing it. Or sometimes people do the whole region thing and they can play it even sooner.
Oh, dude, I unintentionally have a large portion of my Switch library as digital because I try to buy it physical when possible. But if it's a game I for sure want to talk about, I have a Japanese eShop account that I buy from there. And surprisingly enough, I mean, yeah, you're talking, you know, playing the game 16 hours or whatever it is, maybe 12 hours early at least. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that gives you time.
Work day, that's potentially a whole video like in advance. Like
exactly, you can at least get a good first impressions video put together for any game. And so that's actually caused me to dip my toe into physical or digital rather. And then the thing that I hate about it is that it does remind me, even though the Switch is probably the most convenient to switch the cartridge on because there's also small, you can carry them in any carrying case, but it still reminds me that I don't have to do that when I have the games. Yeah. I'm like, oh, cool. I bought this one digitally. Sweet. Press the A button. It's ready to go. You know,
it's just easier.
Mm-hmm. No way around it.
So you can play games sooner. They're more readily accessible. Like those are strong advantages, and now we are seeing these situations with Amazon and Walmart. Like you can't even like have you can't even have them like shipped to your door day one anymore.
Right.
And so it's just getting hard. And sometimes when people decide to do like before this happened, like I never pre-ordered from Amazon for that reason of running.
I've never pre-ordered something
of not having the game like day one. I can tell you, like I have some friends that we would always like play competitive Pokemon with each other, right? Like we would like when a new Pokemon game would come out, which used to be an annual thing, right? So it was a pretty like common tradition for us, right? We would get the game, and everyone would have it on the weekend. We would all hang out together the entire weekend and play the games the entire weekend. But if you ordered it on Amazon, chances are your weekend's going to be off to a late start while everyone else around you is playing when we have these little gatherings, right? So it's just kind of like when you go digital, you don't have to run into any of these issues. So I understand physical, right? Like physical, you actually legally own the game, right? Like that it is yours. It is a collector's item at the same time, and there's value there. I like having the physical things, like for
You can
sure.
resell it. You can get it for cheaper.
But it's kind of scary because fact of the matter is convenience is kind of, at least for me, it is. I'm buying more games digitally than I am buying physically. That's just the truth of the matter, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. There are some people who are going to stick to physical, and for them, it's almost like on a matter of principle, and I respect it. But the masses are more and more leaning towards digital, and it's scary, right? Because like growing up, I always loved like going to arcades. I loved going to Blockbuster. I loved those things. But now Blockbuster's not a thing anymore. Renting videos, that's not a thing, right? Going to arcades, they exist still, but they're less common. They're less interesting. They're usually had to like kind of like really like rely on just the retro aspect, maybe like the barcades, which are cool, but they're not as prevalent as they used to be. They're a dying breed as well. And me, like I love those. Like in the 90s, like that was so cool as a kid. And now we're seeing these things, you know, dying out. It's all part of the same, and it's not just with games, right? Like this affects like pretty much all industries. Like this age of information and digital sales and media. Like, you know, I have friends and family that work in retail, and they and some of them are in management, right? And it's becoming an issue where sales are going down. And it's kind of like an industry-wide thing because people are finding less and less reason to go to stores to buy things. They just order it on Amazon or what have you. So we're just kind of losing reasons to go to stores anymore and get outside, which also sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth. But, you know, the other thing that's kind of happening from a frustration point of still being a physical collector and always preferring to buy the game that way is seeing the amount of day one patches and content that goes out that, like, for instance, when Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out, before the day one patch, it didn't have like the end game content, and like the boot up screen wasn't like entirely fleshed out. Like, and that's from like the Pokemon company. Yeah, that's legit. You can look into that because I remember talking about it. Like they shipped the game with like maybe like a gigabyte missing on the cartridge, and it's like, that's
actually insane.
Yeah, and so that happens now, you know. And then there's some games in my PS5 library that are literally a code to I mean, it's literally the disc is getting the game from the server, and that's all that disc is.
I always hated on how PlayStation and Xbox the last few generations, you would buy the disc and then you wouldn't be able to play the game immediately. You would have to install it. Which is essentially like, might as well just download it then. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, there's still an argument to be had. If it doesn't have to check in with the server, there's still an argument to be made. Okay, well, at least you can, maybe this could trigger the download again. But there is that, maybe if the servers weren't there, maybe that's actually not an option. But yeah, as soon as there is a mandatory, not just an install off the disc, but a mandatory download attached to it, that's whenever the physical conversation starts to fall apart, because the main appeal to it, if you care about preserving your library of games and being able to boot it up, like I could go hook up my SNES and play my whole library without any problems. That's not necessarily the case with the Switch, you know? And how much will that less be the case with the Switch 2? And as we continue on this path, and I've really have gotten to the point, as somebody who cares about physical games, I'm still only really collecting for Nintendo at this point. Like PS5 is even getting more of my business on digital now, because it's like the day one patches.
I bought a
and
PS5
everything.
digital. I had no shame about it. Like for Nintendo, it's a little different because I like to collect Nintendo things. But for PlayStation, I like PlayStation, but I'm not a Sony fanboy. So
I don't want the disc drive for the cheap media. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to buy Call of Duty for $70 when I know in like 2 weeks it's going to be $25.
I mean, I don't know. You can find I mean, I just feel like games in general, you can find discounts. You wait long enough, digital or physical, outside of Nintendo. And I will say, I remember I got Starlink for a hell of a deal. Like not too long after it came out.
I got it for like $5.
Yeah, it was great. I will say, going back to the whole waiting for games to install thing, I have noticed that in more recent times, you can like after a certain point you can just jump into the game even if it's not fully downloaded or installed. So
Right.
they have found ways to rectify some of these issues. But yeah, these are concerns. We'll see what happens, but we still got a lot more to talk about. So I'm just gonna move on. I will point out, though, Sam Talks Games has been a member for 21 straight months. Thank you, buddy. It's been great having you all this time. And Sam here says, how's it going, man? I'm doing well, by the way. Also, assuming Switch 2 isn't getting revealed until 2025, what releases do you think Nintendo has for Switch? MMO, Metro Prime 4, etc. Like until release? I'm still like, yeah, I know, like, as time progresses and we still don't have a Switch 2 revealed, people are losing faith in it coming out early next year. So we start to think, okay, well, what's Nintendo going to do instead? And I think what's interesting is that we're already in an unprecedented like time regardless, because we're already in the second half of October and we don't know about the beginning year lineup. Like by this point, we at least know about a February game. In most cases, we know about the March game as well, and we don't. So it's just very, very interesting where we're at right now, where Nintendo has not detailed their early year lineup yet, outside of Donkey Kong, which is just a basic remaster. So it's weird, right? So I mean, to that point, like I still think Switch 2 is coming out early next year, right? But we'll find out for sure within the next couple of weeks. Under the assumption, though, that it's not coming out early next year, I then have to kind of look back at Legend ZA and think, okay, that game, maybe it's coming out like not that late into the year. I don't think it's like a February game. I want to say it's probably not a March game either, but I wonder, right? Because we did have the Giga Leak that did indicate that Legend ZA was supposed to be a holiday 2024 game at one point. It was delayed. By how much? We haven't seen any trading card sets that indicate a launch happening soon, but there is some wiggle room there. So conceivably,
it's hard for me to believe it's happening too early in the year, considering we haven't seen a single even screenshot of actual official.
I mean,
officially of the game.
it feels like a stretch to say it'll be out by the end of the fiscal year, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to 100% out.
When's the next Pokemon event that we would even expect to happen? The February Direct?
I mean, what I think makes the most sense is that we're going to get... I don't know. This is the most sense. But maybe that Fire Emblem remake is about to be announced.
Yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, you gotta assume it's not going to be any like major titles. Like, maybe if a game is planned for Switch 1 and 2, maybe they come out with the Switch 1 version if they're really desperate, and then just save the Switch 2 version for when the Switch 2 launches. I guess they could do that for certain games if they really had to, but I don't know.
They might even skip a month. I think that's actually
I feel like if it
pretty
is
plausible.
I feel like if the Switch is going to come out like not early in the year or in the summer, if it's like fall, I feel like it would have to have gotten pushed back. So there may be just a lot of time where there's not that much stuff. If that is the case, I wouldn't be too shocked if there were a couple months, if that is the case, where there's just nothing from Nintendo at least.
If this was old Nintendo, I honestly, I really don't buy. Like, I can see a month. I don't see 2 months. Because the fact of the matter is, you look at Nintendo's history, even during the droughts, they were working 2 platforms at the time. So if you account for their software lineup on both platforms, they're actually still pretty consistent. And they have less that they need to put out now because they only have 1 platform to focus on. So really, I think it's unlikely that we have 2 months. Like, maybe it's because it's the 2 months before Switch 2, I guess. But we're still anticipating Switch 1 releases during the Switch 2 lifetime, right? So really, I think there's not going to be that much of a drought. I don't think it's going to be 2 months. Maybe 1 month, because we see that sometimes just randomly anyways. But it might not be a big release, though, to your point. And so maybe it's Fire Emblem. Maybe it's a random Kirby game. Maybe, there is rumors of a Pikmin spinoff. I feel like it's probably happening a little bit later. we are still waiting for Metroid Prime 2 and 3.
Oh,
I don't even want to say the other pair of Zelda. I already said it accidentally, but supposedly those are just waiting, on a shelf
In the
somewhere.
wings.
Like they're in the wings. Like Nintendo could drop them at any point. But we'll see.
Yeah, I guess it's.
Yeah.
You're probably right that they won't have. I guess months where there's just absolutely nothing, because I guess they could just bring projects like. I assume they're gonna have stuff that's gonna be cross-gen, so they could just release the Switch 1 versions of the game, and then just have another marketing cycle later. But I do feel like if there's anything major, that I think they would just delay it entirely until the Switch 2. I don't think. It'd be really weird to just be like day one on Switch. They're just like, we've had these Switch 2 versions ready, so I guess they're just available now. I mean, they could do that. I don't know. I don't think it would be as good a second marketing cycle as you would think. Because it'd be too much stuff at once.
I think when Nintendo does a cross-gen game, I don't think that they're like, it's either going to launch on both systems or it's not. You know what I mean? If it has a day one version on both systems and we already know about Switch 2, then it's going to be considered a cross-gen with its own version on Switch 2. But I think if not, then it's going to be like backwards compatibility, and you're just going to buy it and play it on the next gen console that way. But at least that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think like Metroid Prime 4, if that is to believe to be a cross-gen game, we're just not going to see it drop until the Switch 2 has its version side by side, day and day.
I agree with that.
The Metroid series usually stayed for like closer to the holidays, anyways. Like,
I could see it being later into 2025, honestly.
Switch 1 or Switch 2.
And that's probably why we don't have Prime 2 and 3 yet, because I do think there'll just be a shadow drop announcement, maybe at the February Direct. Maybe that's our February game.
Or they could be summer releases.
It could be summer too. Yeah.
Someone said something in the chat that I thought made a lot of sense. Mint here says, Nintendo skipping multiple months in a row when we suppose there are finished games they're sitting on would be very strange. And I think that's a really good point. Nintendo has been sitting on a lot of games. This is well documented at this point. And we have seen that we haven't even really seen anything made by them come out lately. To some extent, yes, there were Nintendo developers that helped out with Brothership, but it was also developed in tandem with Acquire, right? We just learned about that. Jamboree, I think that's made by Nintendo
Cube. Yeah, I think.
So Nintendo owns them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they fully own them. So that's maybe the last Nintendo made full game. Echoes of Wisdom was made by Grezzo. Nintendo's helped out with these projects, but it's not like a fully 100% Nintendo developed game. They've become really sparing. Like most of their projects are made with some sort of partner. And a lot of these games have been done for a while. So it's very interesting. And we still have heard about a variety of other games that supposedly we're just waiting for, like Prime 2 and 3, Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, the Fire Emblem remake. There's been a rumored F-Zero for some time as well. That's 6 games right there that they might be able to drop at any point. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's others that we've never even heard about. So I think Nintendo has a plan. I think ideally Nintendo wants these games to come out once Switch 2 is already out at the same time, because they don't want to just use up every game in the Switch 1 library before Switch 2 comes out. I think they want Switch 1 to still have games coming out into the Switch 2 window, not just so they can keep Switch 1 selling alongside Switch 2, which is important. Switch 1's not done for at least a few more years, just so we're clear. But it's also so the games that they do release for Switch 1, even if they're Switch 1 games, because of backwards compatibility, they will still have some extra life on Switch 2 as well. So it would benefit Nintendo, at least from that perspective, to hit this early 2025 window. Of course, if they're not ready, they're not ready. We'll see. We got topics to discuss, so I don't want to dwell too much on this one point here. But Nintendo has plenty of options. Chrono Rig, been a member for 24 months. Glad to have you, buddy. And Boo Mini has gifted another membership, and the Joker is the proud winner. Well, I don't know, maybe you're not proud, but You are the winner of this membership. So glad to have you,
like,
buddy.
ugh,
And
I
thank
didn't
you.
want to be a
Mummy.
member. Ugh.
Velociraptor Ghost asks me, which Nintendo character do you wish was real?
Kirby.
That's dangerous. Kirby could like annihilate the universe.
But he's a nice guy. He wouldn't do that.
On purpose. He's just a threat. Samus.
That's almost realistic too, with like if technology got to that point with her suit, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a, you know, one day type of scenario, but
I guess the fear though is if Samus is real, does it also imply all the universal space threats are real, like the space pirates and Ridley? Because we could be hanging out and then one day the space pirates just completely ravage us. So I wouldn't like that. But if Samus was like, you know, a friend of mine or my wife, then I might not have to worry about it.
To be fair, who knows? That could happen. There could be space pirates out there that could ravage us. We don't know.
Right. They might already exist. So might as well just have Samus just in case.
Yeah. We need Samus to protect us.
Metroid could just be the plot of old ancient tales passed down that ended up being all coming from a true place in history. You never know.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know how meta you want to get here, but like it all could be cyclical, right? Like everything just resets, and you know there are stories that linger, and eventually they will come to pass. But anyways, let's get into our next topic here. We got 4 topics left. Sunbro, take your pick. Right? What should we dive into next? The Pokemon leaks, the Sakurai new game, our weekly switch to Hopium, or Nintendo's worst kept secret, the MMO?
I would like to talk about the Pokemon leaks for a minute.
All right. The Pokemon leak rodeo continues. And that is a slight play on words because we have news. We've gotten word of another leaked Pokemon game codenamed Rodeo. Now, this one gets a little confusing because the way we've seen this described, we've seen concept art with them holding guns and it's multiplayer. It sounds a lot like a Pokemon Splatoon-like experience, which was already described to be Project Synapse. So the speculation is that Project Rodeo was the initial effort to do this, and the game has since been recycled. ILCA is now working in conjunction with Game Freak and Pokemon Company to produce this project, but it has changed. It's no longer Project Rodeo, and it is now Project Synapse. But there's footage out there. You have these characters that look a lot like, they look kind of like characters from Pokemon Go or Pokemon Unite. Like they're very like realistic proportion a little bit, right? They still have a little bit of that anime feel, but they're more realistic proportions, very customizable. There's a lot of footage of like this girl running around on the head of a Garchomp, and the gameplay actually looks pretty fun. Like it looks pretty cool, and you see other Pokemon roaming around the environment, and you can catch and throw other Pokemon while still riding the Garchomp. Like the Garchomp can fight, but you can send out smaller Pokemon that can also fight out in this. I don't know how open the game is, but it's at least like a sandbox 3D environment, so it's at least semi-open in terms of exploration. It's obviously like, you know, not a complete game, but from what we see conceptually looks pretty darn fun. So it's crazy. Like we saw a Samurott being ridden. For those who don't know, Samurott is one of the water starters. They could pull out like its shell armor and use them as swords. There's Electivire. I think there was also, I remember Electivire, Samurott, and Garchomp. There's probably another one, but yeah, that's like a quick little summary of one major component to the recently leaked thing. So let's stick to that, but there is more to sift through. What do you guys make of that so far? Like, how crazy do you think of this game?
I'm really curious to see what the actual gameplay loop would be based around on it, because we were hearing like Splatoon-like online multiplayer, and when I saw the gameplay clips, I mean, I could see that being tied to that, but then at the same time, I don't know. To me, it almost looked like a more wild take on a Legends Arceus for a minute, you know, where yeah, you can battle like other people online, but I didn't think of it as like mass battling a bunch of different people at once. Like I don't think the description Splatoon like really necessarily fits what we saw from the gameplay, but it's obviously concept gameplay, and it would be very different and very unique to Pokemon. And just yeah, seeing like your character riding on a giant Pokemon and being able to throw other ones out while that's happening, like that is what caught my attention. That could be a lot of fun for playing against other players, but I would hope there's also like a single player story that you're going through and unlocking things as well. It's weird to see concept gameplay that early though, and it's also weird with some of like the like what you were talking about with Synapse and Rodeo kind of being tied to each other and maybe recycled content. Like, do we know that game is for sure being recycled, or is that something that's not tied? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how deep you dove into that.
Right. There's always room for misinterpretation, right? So
yeah,
even though we're talking about leaks, if anything, this is a good example of why when we talk about potential rumors or leaks, and we talk about, hey, take this with a grain of salt for any variety of reasons. Here we have leaks. Like, we know there are leaks. There is no doubt that they are leaks, right? It's 100. Game Freak essentially themselves has confirmed it that they are leaks, right? But how we interpret those leaks is where there's a lot of room for confusion or misinterpretation, because we look at Rodeo, and so we have to ask ourselves, okay, this is something they were planning at one point, but what has changed?
Mm-hmm.
What's actually going to come to market, right? And so think of it from this perspective. Assume the leaks weren't public. Assume there was just a random insider that saw these leaks, saw what we've seen recently, and then goes to like Twitter or YouTube or fan boards, whatever, and provides some hints. Oh, there's going to be a game that has you riding a Pokemon or something, and there's guns, right? Because actually there is some concept art that shows like Splatoon-like guns as well that came alongside the footage. That's why people made the comparison to Splatoon-like. But then when we see the final product, there are no guns. And so someone's going to say, oh, that leaker was fake. No, plans changed. It was a consideration, didn't make it all the way to the final product. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and maybe Rodeo isn't Synapse. That's possible. From what we understand, Rodeo's canceled though. Like it's not actively being worked on though. So the hope is that Synapse is based off that really cool looking Rodeo footage. And I'll say that from what we've heard, I think maybe I might even be conflating some things here, so I'll have to double check. But I believe it was said that Rodeo was planned as a Nintendo Switch and mobile game. I think that's kind of the thought process on what Synapse will be. And what's interesting about that is that that's literally what Pokemon Unite was.
I saw somebody linking this to Unite, which also made me question how much does that really look like Unite, because I didn't spend any time hardly in Unite.
I liked Unite a lot, actually. It's free. Like, it's honestly a pretty good time without having to spend a single dollar.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the costumes are pretty cool, but they do cost. The costumes cost money. That's where the money's at.
I feel like it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Now, I would assume that this game is not a MOBA, but it might be free to play. So, some people look at free to play and they get upset about it. But if you don't have to buy it, if you literally don't have to give them a single dollar and you can enjoy a game for hours, I mean, that was my experience with Pokemon Unite. Like, I definitely poured in maybe 20 hours into that game. I don't think I spent a single dollar. I think I eventually bought like one or two costumes, right? Because I felt like, I should put in something. But I didn't spend $60 or $70 on this game. I spent more time on this game than I have for other games, and that I spent a lot more money on. So, I'm just saying that not all free-to-play games are necessarily bad, but of course, it can be a slippery slope. I don't think it necessarily will be based off how they handle Unite. Like, I don't think Unite was too controversial. So if they kind of adopt a similar strategy this time around, could be kind of cool. Now, at the same time, I'll say that if this is also being developed as not just a Switch game, but also a mobile game, does that also kind of have inherent limitations, right? Like we can't expect it to be like a Legends Arceus level kind of game. Like it might be kind of somewhat simplified because it may also be a mobile game.
I mean, it depends on which. I mean, modern phones are pretty powerful. I would say modern phones are pretty much just as capable or more capable than, say, the current Nintendo Switch we have.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's just a game targeting like Switch 1 levels of power, like it could definitely be on mobile as well. Like maybe if they want to support like as many phones as possible, maybe they would make it more simple because, like really old phones maybe. But even like my phone is probably more powerful than the Switch, and it's almost like end of life. So I don't think mobile's going to hold back a project that's like tied to Switch 1.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And it would be interesting to see if Game Freak and the Pokemon, or I guess ILCA at this point, and the Pokemon Company go try more of those kind of free to play games. Like that's definitely, I mean, if you think about the trading card game and some of the other stuff, they're in the mobile space. I mean, look at Pokemon Go. It's been very successful for them to be attached to things that blow up like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's maybe what this is tied to.
Hey, by the way, I'm looking through the leaks right now. Like they have like like pretty official looking internal documents where Garchomp is like being dressed up and stuff, right? But they also have like they literally have a picture of Splatoon and they're pointing at it.
Oh wow,
that's funny.
So it's very intentional to have some Splatoon like inspiration for this Garchomp game with the girl writing, which is Project Rodeo, which supposedly Synapse is also a Splatoon like game. So
yeah.
I was looking for something else though that I saw that was interesting, extremely interesting. It was a big part of what I talked about today in my video. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Sunbro, but they're part of the leaks from Pokemon Rodeo also included imagery of the controls. And I can't share, regardless, I can't share it, right?
Okay.
Because I literally, my video from yesterday got blocked and everything was blurred. So at this point, I'm on super extra careful mode.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's crazy that they did that.
I'm just trying to find it here real quick because someone did a translation of the controls, and that gives us kind of like some perspective on how Rodeo is going to play, and so they kind of can speak to how simplified it might be. Let me go to my video because I think my video I have literally that specific thing linked so I can actually get to it. So give me a second here. But I'll mention the other thing so you can kind of have it in your mind. This diagram included colored buttons. Yes. So
interesting.
Yet another piece of proof that the next gen console has colored buttons. I really think it does. I'm like 99. Like I would be shocked if we see the reveal for the next gen console and it doesn't have colored buttons.
Where's the colored buttons? It must have been canceled.
Yeah.
Right,
I just think Nintendo's going to do it. I mean, it's a callback to, the Super Famicom era, but then also like they did it with the new 3DS, and it's like if you just want something to like an average consumer, not only can, you tell the difference between buttons easier, which is nice, but also like it just looks different than your current product. And even though it's bigger, you want to make it look as different as possible in as many different ways if it's going to have a similar form factor. So like the colored buttons are a good, easy indicator for that. And what number of games is this now, Andres? Like 5 different games we have now that have colored button layouts.
Yeah, a point that I made so it looks like these things have been taken down already. So right. And I actually blurred most of that. I showed it in my video today, and I blurred everything in the image but the colored button sections, right? The video hasn't been taken. I don't think it's been taken down. It's a very small little piece, but I'll be very upset if it is. But anyway, I saw someone that translated it and I can't find it anymore. So that's what's crazy about some of these leaks. So these things are being taken down. But it did seem to take advantage of all the Switch controls, just based off memory. However simple you want to call that, that's a lot to get to work on a mobile game. But speaking on the color button stuff, this kind of sort of ties into some of the Switch 2 things, which maybe we just go right into Switch 2. I mean, it kind of segues.
Yeah, I think it does too. And one thing I was going to mention at some point during the Pokemon conversation is obviously the Gen 10 piece with with
we
that.
can, by the way, we don't have to like stick to one thing. If it's something, if you want a tangent, feel free to tangent. But I just kind of feel like this is where we're going, so I'm
with you.
But one of the big things about the color buttons. So like first off, Rodeo is a Switch 1 game, right? So we're seeing color buttons for a Switch 1 game. This isn't, hey, this is a Switch 2 game and it's showing the controller with colored buttons. So this isn't straight up confirm colored buttons for Switch 2. But as you noted, it's another game that has colored buttons. And what I find interesting about it is that up to this point, before this discovery, we had only known about some third-party games and the Mario RPG games using the colored buttons. So there was an argument to be made that this is just a trend we were seeing for the Mario RPGs, and then the random third-party games were just random third-party games. But now this is another Nintendo game that's not Mario RPG game that's using the colored buttons. Now, here's something else that's interesting. And this, in some ways, doesn't support the theory, but it kind of depends on how you look at it. The A and Y buttons are the same. So A is red, Y is green. That's the same way it works on Super Famicom, right? So the button to the right is red, the button to the left is green. But X is supposed to be blue at the top, and B is supposed to be yellow at the bottom. They're swapped in this diagram. X is yellow, and B is blue. So, why they switched that, I don't know. It might just be they felt like it, right? Maybe it was an error. These are just internal documents to kind of describe what they're doing, right? So mistakes do happen, right? Like we've seen leaks where companies are using imagery made by fans randomly on the internet, right? Like these things aren't meant necessarily for the public eye. So mistakes, weird things like that, it's all plausible. But the theory I had is that potentially either for just this game or maybe even just for Switch 2, maybe they are going to swap the colors here. And I actually think it makes some sense because what are like the two like most popular colors? I would say blue and red.
Yeah, red and blue.
Yeah,
totally.
most definitely.
I would say blue and red make more sense for A and B, the two primary buttons, as opposed to red and yellow. I feel like yellow is kind of like, and it's not a big deal, but I would just say like if you're gonna, it makes more sense to have A and B as blue and red, and then X and Y, the secondary buttons, to be yellow and green. This may seem like a little thing, but that's just what I saw in the diagram. That's what makes the most sense to me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the GameCube because on that one it was another difference because that was green for A and then red for B.
Right.
True. Yeah,
the X and Y were just gray, right?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. But the C stick was yellow.
C stick was yellow.
The button was purple.
Yeah, that's right. The Z button, right? It was It was purple. I almost picture it as blue, but I guess it was purple, like that GameCube purple.
Maybe like purple, like indigo, like there's in that area.
Right in that, yeah. No, and that's really interesting about the colored buttons in that diagram because that's still something that I really think that those games that we saw using it. And yeah, to your point, 2 of the games are Mario RPGs, so you could maybe dismiss that argument before, but now seeing a diagram of another studio, internal, more or less first-party Nintendo,
I think the idea was it was more first-party then than it was now, because supposedly now ILCA is helping. I mean, Game Freak's not Nintendo themselves either way, but this is still a Nintendo-published title. Pokemon is Nintendo.
See, my theory with it was always just if it's going to be colored buttons on the next system and we're expecting backwards compatibility, it doesn't mean the game's meant for Switch 2, but like if they know that the colored buttons are going to be there on Switch 2 and at some point Nintendo told developers, hey, your Switch 1 games that are coming out late life cycle are going to have an opportunity to sell on our next gen console. You might want to include our updated button layout of what that's going to look like from a color reference standpoint. I'm sure there's just a handful of devs that were like, oh yeah, we're going to do that. And then if anybody puts any stock into the idea that it was ever supposed to be a late 2024 holiday season game, it would, or game console rather, launch this year at holiday season, then that would explain that perfectly why we saw it popping up in games so early on. And now if games that are in development also have references to colored buttons, I just think it's like a further evidence that we're going to see the Switch 2 with colored buttons.
Here's another interesting thing. We've seen some games with the colored buttons, but all those games mimic the Super Famicom layout.
Correct.
But from this leaked, it's not mimicking the layout, right? They flipped.
Yeah, that part is interesting. Mm-hmm.
So I wonder. Now, the thing is, this also, I don't know how old this information is. Maybe plans changed. We're not sure what's more up to date. But is it possible that some of these developers were tipped off to this because Nintendo literally told them, right? But maybe they didn't know exactly what the color orientation would be. And so they just kind of assumed it would be the way Nintendo's always had it.
Mm-hmm. Possible.
But this leak is perhaps indicating to us what it's actually going to be. Or vice versa. I don't know. But just something to ponder upon there. Yeah, I mean, I believe in color theory. Both for art, light, and the Switch 2, like all color theories. I think they're pretty sound theories. So, but that's not all the Switch 2 stuff, right? There's still a lot more. There was some mention in the Pokemon leak that I don't even have the wording right. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Yeah, I can share this. I don't think I'll be banned from existence if I share this. So
that Central Leaks account has been talking about they're archiving all their stuff because of how much the Pokemon Company and Nintendo's going after it.
Yeah, but you'll see here, Central reported, Ounce, Switch 2, seems to use the same tools and ROM format Nintendo currently uses for Switch 1. ROMs are still NSPs, but obviously they have new encryption keys that only Nintendo has. I don't know if you guys can extrapolate more from that than I can. I think it does suggest that I think it does feed into the backwards compatibility, right?
Yeah. I mean, it
So
kind of lines up with leaks we've seen before, because the tool set that was leaked a long time ago was just the same tool set as the Switch, but with a 2 on it. So it just seems to be an evolved form of the same.
I lost you, Brandon.
Ugh, I got a call there. I don't know if that messed up what I was saying.
We did. We lost what you said.
Oh, I was just saying that, yeah, I assume it would be the same toolkit because it's going to be backwards compatible just with more development tools. I don't know that there's really too much to extrapolate from this other than I mean, it fits with what we've heard before and what makes sense.
Well, I would hope that the new encryption keys part means that even though backwards compatibility is a thing, that the easy leaking of Nintendo's games and making them playable on any emulator that's out there, that part seems like it would be tied to it. And yeah, I guess I don't know a whole lot of in-depth, but from what I saw online, the general consensus of the same ROM format and still being NSPs is just all but confirming that Nintendo has the system primed and ready for backwards compatibility. And is anybody even really questioning that much anymore?
No.
Because
Doom mongers.
Sure, there are people that are always going to say Nintendo won't do it. It's too, like that's what people want. They would never do it. Every single console that doesn't massively change its media format has backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at what even like Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, they're like, we really messed up losing the Xbox One generation. That was the most important generation ever for them to win, because people are bringing their digital libraries over from their PS4 to PS5, and they're like, I don't want to buy an Xbox. I don't have any of my games.
Correct.
So like people will be so much more willing to buy a Switch 2 if it's backwards compatible than not. Like if it's not backwards compatible, Nintendo just shot themselves not in the foot, in the leg. Like that would be a huge loss.
And they're still making money off their evergreen games like never before. You know, like they would actually legitimately be harming their own bottom line if they said, oh yeah, all these, you know, great experiences that we put out on the Switch that still have legs to them, let's chop those off at the knees and just, you know, whatever they're at right now is going to be it, because a lot of the eyeballs are going to our next gen hardware. Like,
I have this image in my head of Call of Duty Zombies when you blast them with grenades and they're just kind of crawling around.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Nintendo would get if they didn't have backwards compatibility.
What Nintendo would be doing to their software sales. I mean, over well over a billion. It was a 1.2 billion something pieces of software sold. Like they have success at a whole nother level on this console, and everything that's in the eShop and everything that they get a cut of because it's in their eShop, like it just shutting all of that down in a world where even was it Miyamoto or somebody was saying how much easier rolling games forward has become as the tools have become more standardized over the course of time. And, you know, all the inside leaks are saying that it's still going to be a cartridge. It's just going to be slightly different and 3D NAND and all of that. And there's even some patents that got renewed for Nintendo for cartridges. Like, you think they're really going to come out with another console that has a cartridge slot and then just nothing works with your previous library? Like, so anyway, that was a cool that the ounce. What my biggest takeaway from that Pokemon leak tied to the Switch 2 stuff was the actual legit confirmation that ounce is the code name for the next gen hardware.
Not OSD, like
ounce. Big. Yeah, like ounce spelled out. Yep.
That's cool stuff. So we got a lot more Switch 2 stuff to talk about, though. People were talking about this a lot over the weekend, and I only just got to it today. But I made some discoveries. Some of you may have seen my video and may know what I'm talking about. Sunbro, you may have already realized it yourself, but I'm assuming you're very familiar with. I know you. I saw your video on this already. I know you're familiar with what this is.
Yes.
But this is not private, right? Okay, good. I don't want to get banned. But this is
all you have to do is just copy and paste anything over on our gaming leaks and rumors, and then screenshot that, and then Family Boards won't care.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, you can't ban someone for discussing public information.
You wouldn't, yeah. Well, I mean, you might get banned from their forum, but I just think
if you getting banned for discussing something that's not on their website.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
So that's.
I was just pointing out how silly their rules are, because you can screenshot. People post the stuff that comes from them on our gaming leaks and rumors all the time, and that can get screenshotted and discussed. But if you took a screenshot of their forum, then they're gonna potentially ban you.
I mean, it's there's an anti-YouTuber. You know,
most definitely
culture there, right? We're the scum of the earth. So, but you know, as much as we don't want to be, we're still going to talk about Switch 2. And Beast comes to the earth. So, we got this right now. And then Spider, I talked about in today's video. Sunbro, I'm sure you're very well aware. Brandon, you may or may not be, but Nin Spider has leaked a few things about Switch 2 before others, like the magnets. Like before we got the Vanda report, before the Moapad leaks, Nin Spider tipped us off to there being something magnetic having to do with Switch 2, and it's pretty essentially all but confirmed that Switch 2 has magnetic Joy-Cons at this point. Yeah. So that's just kind of one thing that they've indicated. But now they're showing this little doodle, right? And so a lot of people have been like just not taking this seriously because it looks silly because it's a doodle. But this literally happened for Switch 1 before it was revealed as well. Like it's just someone who's been doodling it because if they showed actual photos, that would be a whole other level of scariness and troubleness, right? And maybe they didn't even have access to their phone. So doodling's the best thing you could do. But what's crazy about this was there's actually a lot crazy about this. One, the dock is fatter and rounder. It implies that there's something in there, right? And we have shipping data that suggests a bigger, higher wattage AC adapter and an extra cooling fan. We don't know for a fact where the cooling fan is supposed to go, but there has been speculation the cooling fan would go inside the dock to add extra cooling to a console that may overclock to a higher speed with the higher wattage to take better advantage of TV mode. That's kind of the speculation. So we got a beefier dock. For whatever reason, we got a beefier dock. And I think that's a good sign for better TV mode. But the other crazy thing, and I think this is the crazier thing, is the kickstand. Does anyone know why the U-shaped kickstand that's slimmer is the crazier thing?
Because it's a handle?
I'm gonna tell you why it's crazier.
Handle.
It's because it's taking us back to the GameCube days. You can use it like a handle and put it inside your round dock, and this is GameCube 2. This is gonna be the Nintendo Game Sphere.
Oh my god.
No. Well, I mean, maybe, but what I was getting at is that this is not the first time we've heard about the U-shaped handle. Do you remember that Chinese leak that came out right before the prototype leak? And supposedly that Chinese leak had worker verification.
Yep.
That Chinese leak also mentioned this U-shaped handle exactly like this. And also the back of the tablet had a logo that was essentially like Switch 2. So then Spider here is in some ways providing information that's backing up a prior leak that indicates the console's called Switch 2. Which is also interesting because last week what happened? Dr. Serkan Toto
yep,
put out another
Switch 2.
cryptic tweet, quote, Switch 2. Some people have told me that I'm interpreting it in the opposite direction, that the quote means that it's not actually Switch 2. And maybe it's up for interpretation right now. But when you factor these things together, I mean, obviously nothing's guaranteed, but I'm in the camp that the console's called Switch 2.
If we get the Switch, the successor to the Nintendo Switch reveal trailer, and they don't just be like, "Yep, this is Switch 2." If they call if it comes up on screen Ultra Switch or some Switch Plus, or my mind's going to be blown. I'm 100% just expecting them to be like Switch, and then like a 2 comes out of the side. It's like Switch 2.
I think this might be the first time that we see Nintendo name their console something that makes total sense. and I think it's gonna match the vibe of Furukawa being a more cautious president. You know, I think
more
that
businessman.
Yeah, more business minded and business focused, and looking around and saying, well, damn, Sony's up to PlayStation 6. You know, next time it's literally PS6. There's leaks about that console right now. I don't know if you guys saw that, but you know, PlayStation trademarked the name PlayStation 1 through 10 like years back. They have been sticking on this path that just works, and people understand that every time a new generation of their hardware comes out, that they know exactly what it is. There's zero confusion. And Nintendo literally saw a fall on your face flop from mismarketing and probably somewhat misnaming the Wii U. You know, Furukawa was probably aware of that, and the Switch is far more successful than the Wii because of the install base it's created and the software sales, in my opinion. But doesn't mean that they can't mismarket and misname something and fall off again. So I do like the Switch 2 tie-in. I think the handle idea is hilarious because it's the most guaranteed way to make sure that you drop your Switch face down so the screen cracks in case if you drop it from that handle. So that's
perfect.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
So that part's kind of funny to me. But the fact that there's this round, and Andres, I can't remember if you said it in your breakdown just now, but not corroborated by Nate the Hate. But interestingly,
corroborated.
Yeah, like
he doesn't want to attach his credibility to it, but he said he heard something and he can't fully verify.
He got sent something that matches this, according to him, back in September. And yes, to be fair, he said he can't verify it or hasn't verified it with his sources yet, rather. But it's just, the fact that this is now coming from multiple different places, and that is it Nin Spider? Is that the person that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That Nin Spider, like, saying magnets on their posts far before. I don't know about you guys. If
at
that
least
was a
10
common
days before everyone else.
And I don't know if that was a common theory. That was something I never saw anybody mention until we saw the Vandal report and the accessory manufacturers and things like that. So
out of the field.
So I look back at Nin Spider's history. When they first started saying things, people didn't take them seriously at all.
Right.
The person's only posted like 4 or 5 times. We're just now kind of coming to the realization after like this person. I mean, if it's not obvious, Nin Spider. Nintendo Insider.
Insider.
It's someone who's definitely like putting the information out there. So it's pretty wild.
But if the dock is big like that, and we have these now kind of multiple sources on it, Nintendo's not making that dock big just to be big. There's zero reason for them to do that. Like
there's one.
What? Just different look
to set itself apart. Yeah.
Sure.
But I believe in form and function at the same time. I think all Nintendo does too, right? So yes, they want to look different.
Packaging costs go up the bigger the unit is, so you don't want to just make it bigger for no reason.
There will be purpose behind it, but I'm just saying technically there is one purpose.
You're right about that. You're right about that. But I think, why would there be like maybe I don't fully understand the size of the fans that were distinguished in that shipping data, but there was 2, and it seemed to be like the consensus online was that there's no way Nintendo's putting both of those in the console itself. So why do you have a second
We've
fan?
seen the prototype leak. I don't even really see space for. I mean, I'm not a master of how that be put together, but I don't know where the second fan would go unless it's like both like really small little squares. So
it seems very unlikely that they would fit 2 fans, or even like, I don't think that would be more helpful. I think one bigger fan would be actually more performant than 2 smaller fans. So I definitely don't think that's what's happening.
Hear me out.
It's gotta be a separate thing outside the Switch.
I think there's room for interpretation for how exactly this dock is going to look, because there's some mock-ups that make it look like it's slanted, right?
Yeah, this drawing definitely looks like it's got like a curve to the end.
It's the original drawing looks like a curve, almost spherical, right? And so that might sound, it sounds like I'm making a joke, but take me seriously for like 5 seconds. If it's like symmetrically like circular, right? Like imagine like a quarter of a sphere and the back of the dock, right? I can almost imagine a fan being at the very tip of the edge. And you have like a round like structure, and so the air can kind of flow in and hit the back side of the Switch 2 tablet evenly to offer more cooling support. I'm not an architect when it comes to these things. I don't know how exactly it would work. I understand I don't know all the nuance. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Kind of seems like it makes sense, but.
And maybe that would play into the idea of why they need a U-shaped kickstand as well, because there's more ventilation in the back of the system or something that takes in that airflow.
Yeah, because you could blow air across the entirety of the back, but I feel like it'd probably be more efficient to blow air into the back vents and then out the top.
That might make sense.
Yeah. And I'm almost wondering too, I'm not an expert at this either, but I almost think you have to really take advantage of a fan cooling like CPU and GPU heat, essentially. Like, I almost think there has to be some kind of copper exposure at some point. But would there be such a thing that there's little, as you dock it in correctly, that can still actually happen? If not, I'm sure it still just helps if they're running the console a little bit hotter to have that extra airflow either way, especially if there are more open vents in the back of the console. So maybe
the vents are at the bottom, and the way it's structured, the air can flow in through the bottom of the dock.
Something like that is what I'm thinking. And this is something I just remembered too. And I don't think everybody's like, the consensus on this individual isn't like 100%, but They've definitely been right about them in what's that?
Is it ever 100% consensus?
No. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Moore's Law is Dead is a YouTube channel that's pretty large, 100 and maybe 200k ish something subscribers, but they report on Nvidia all the time, and the reason is believed because they have contacts there, and they've ended up being right about a lot of Nvidia related stuff. They've put out a few different things on Switch 2. Some of it sounded different at the beginning than it kind of did later on, but one thing he said in a video was something to the effect of like, the gap in power this time around from docked mode to handheld is larger. And this is according to Nvidia sources, like the way that the chip ramps up and what it ramps up to wattage wise and clock speed wise and docked mode sets it apart by a lot from handheld mode.
I think it makes a lot of sense for that to be the case this time, because I think it's going to be targeting a lot bigger differential in terms of like resolution when you're docked.
Yeah,
the gap between
docked,
720 and 1080 is not as big as 1080 to 4K, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So, I mean, even if you're using something like DLSS, that still has a cost. So you still need to boost like the tensor cores and different things that accelerate that feature.
Ray tracing would have a cost.
Ray tracing.
Right? Maybe ray tracing is not a thing you do in portable mode.
Maybe.
Well, let me just throw this out there, right? Again, I'm not a master of understanding all the technical know-how for these things, but I know when I play my PlayStation 5 games, ray tracing is one of those effects that can be easily turned on and off.
That's right.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you're trying to look for ways to make portable mode work with better power consumption, automatically turning off ray tracing in portable mode kind of makes sense, I would say.
Yeah. I think Nintendo will behind the scenes, because I don't think that they're going to let you customize a lot of their first party games the way that we can toggle graphical settings on and off and all the like Sony and Microsoft first party stuff. Yeah. But I do think I can see a world where Nintendo has those settings behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like they're just, when you go from the docked mode, and this really already happens with the Switch, but I think even to a larger effect on the next gen console, when you go from your docked play to your handheld play, it just shut off ray tracing. It just downgraded the frame rate potentially. It just kicked up DLSS higher as far as the base resolution. Stuff like that could definitely happen.
I don't think that they will ever change the frame rate between modes. I hope not. I guess I can almost guarantee that they're not going to have like a 60 FPS docked and then you're playing handheld. Oh, that's only 30 FPS.
I agree with that.
I think that just makes handheld feel like trash. It's like I don't want to play handheld now.
So to be clear, I think developers would probably have the choice, but I think Nintendo developers probably won't make that choice.
I don't think Nintendo would allow that. That's currently not a thing on Switch, and I don't think that that's a thing they want. They don't want handheld to look bad. They don't want handheld mode to look significantly worse. I'm not even sure that they would do like ray tracing, depending on the types of ray tracing. Maybe if it was smaller effects like just ray trace shadows or ambient occlusion or something. But if it's like global illumination in an Unreal Engine 5 game, like that's going to look like a completely different game with traditional lighting versus like, Lumen GI. Like I don't think they're going to want the game to look like significantly worse where you're like, oh, is this even the same like game? This looks completely different. Like, this looks way worse. Like, I don't think they want that because then handheld mode just looks like it sucks.
Well, I will say that, one of the cool things about Switch 1 when it came out was that handheld mode kind of rocked. I
think that's the biggest thing for Switch. Like handheld mode holds up way more than dock mode does.
I also feel like when Switch 1 came out, docked mode, if at first sometimes people were like, "Yo, dock mode is not running as well as it should," I do think that they're gonna kind of rectify that a bit more with Switch 2. The fact of the matter is, like, if we're talking about scaling down like ray tracing and like resolution, maybe a little bit of draw distance, when you're talking about playing on a 4K television versus going down to a 1080p screen, like those things are not going to be as noticeable. And so I think games are going to still look pretty good. And I go back to like again, when I turn off ray tracing on and off my PS5, I'm not like, oh my god, look at the difference. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, but it also depends on the game.
I
It
get
very
it.
much depends on the
I
type
get
of
it.
ray tracing effects they're
Maybe-
using.
It
and
may or
how
may not
much
be ray
they're
tracing. I
noticeable.
think that would come down to the developer. But I'm just simply stating it's just another thing. I think regardless, like I'm not too concerned that like portable mode is gonna suck. I think it's gonna still be good. I just also think that Switch because you already mentioned it, you already said it yourself. Like we were not even really disagreeing here.
We're not.
yeah.
I'm just giving a little more nuance.
Sure, that's fair. But I will say we should probably hold back on the nuance because we still got 2 more topics. Sunbro, if you have to leave, let me know. But I think we should continue on. Unless there's something else you guys want to say specifically about Switch 2 that you need to say.
Nope.
We talk about it every week. We can move on.
Yep.
And these things are still theoretically tangentially related. So let's jump into Sakurai's new game. And then I'll talk about the other thing, because if they take down the stream for me talking about it, at least I got through the stream before that happened. I'm not going to get taken down for talking about it. But anyways. So today, Masahiro Sakurai concluded completely Masahiro Sakurai on creating games, his YouTube channel. And there was I haven't seen the whole video yet. I'm going to take a look at it tonight and tomorrow morning as I prepare for something tomorrow that I'm making. But he said there were some things that he said that were kind of mind-blowing. The recording he did for this was recent, but the recording for every other prior video was from over 2 years ago. He did all of this recordings in a small span of time after he concluded the DLC for Smash Ultimate, or was wrapping up the DLC for Smash Ultimate, while he waited a few months before he got a team together for his next big project. And so all those people that were saying, oh, he's been working on the YouTube channel this entire time, he's not working on a game. Well, actually, he has been working on a game for the last 2 years, which means the game's probably not that far off. I'm not saying it's coming out next year, but it's probably not that far off. And he told us he has a game that he can't announce yet. My interpretation is it's definitely like a published title. What it is, that is obviously there's debate to be had there, so that's why I'm opening up the topic. What is Sakurai working on?
I think it's got to be Smash for the next console, man. Like, I know that's just like the obvious choice, but I also just think that Nintendo, before they allow, I mean, it's not like they allow, he what was it, a proposal that was put together, right? But before they come to him, like, they're going to aggressively go after him making the next Smash before I feel like they give him time and freedom to go do something else in the generation that he wants to. I think that they want to get another Smash out. Smash Ultimate is out 2018. I think they want to get another Smash Bros. Out in some way, shape, or form, taking advantage of the next gen hardware within the first 2 to 3 years of the console. This would line up with that timeline. It doesn't mean it can't be a Kirby or Kid Icarus, but Kid Icarus, unless if it's a brand new experience, I don't think Uprising needs the kind of development time and what he talked about and putting together a team and that. Yeah, I mean, but then there was some interesting timing about, like, it started in April 2022, right, with him putting together the team and everything, and then that's mysteriously when Forgotten Land came out, and so there, he has ties to Kirby.
So what if this is his final game? What if what if he wants it to be like full circle, go back to Kirby?
And there's that too. And my backup plan for that is that if this is the case and this is some kind of totally different project than Smash Bros. And it's not another better Smash Bros. In some way, shape, or form, he also got talked into making an updated Smash Ultimate 4K Deluxe that's going to come out on the next gen console and be re-released with all the fighters and probably some new fighters, and just expanded Smash Ultimate a little bit more on his way out. Because they want to have a version of Smash Bros. To sell on the next gen console, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
I would really hope that Sakurai has trained somebody up, gotten somebody else to do Smash. Because, like, I mean, even if he is working on the Smash for Switch 2, the likelihood that he would work on another Smash for Switch 3, like, seems really unlikely. Like, it really feels like he's coming down to like the last game or maybe like the second to last game he's ever going to produce. So I really hope it's not Smash, because I think they could get somebody else to do a new Smash and it would be fine. I hope he's going for something like not necessarily Kid Icarus, but the same type of project, like a passion project, like just doing something that he wants to do, just purely because he thinks it's going to be cool. I want to see what he would do. I don't think it would be the same. I don't think it'd be Kirby or Kid Icarus. I think it would be something new. Maybe not a new IP, but like a different IP. But he would do something cool with something.
Fox!
I would be shocked if it was Star Fox. But maybe. But I kind of hope
I just know that Sakurai would make a Star Fox game. I just know.
I'm sure he would. I just don't feel like he wants to make a Star Fox game. I don't know. Maybe he does.
Why do you feel that way?
I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know.
I mean, listen. I have as much claim to my opinion as you have to yours. I just, I feel like you're just saying you don't. Like... It sounds like you just don't want him to make it.
No, I would love for. I mean, I don't particularly want him to make Star Fox because I don't know. It just doesn't like. I don't think Sakurai when I think Star Fox. I don't know. It's just a weird gut thing where I'm just like that is. I don't know.
All right. Well, what does your gut say then? I'm sorry, I'm challenging you so much here. I don't know.
I mean, you're not even really. You're asking me to be more specific.
Yeah, I want. If you're gonna shoot down Star Fox from space, because he's flying in space. But what are you gonna launch into the air instead? Not Kid Icarus, not Kirby, not Star Fox. I bet you're gonna shoot down F-Zero as well. So
I don't think he would do F-Zero.
He's not gonna do Earthbound. That's not his baby. He's not gonna do Metroid. That's not his baby.
I don't know. I would never have guessed Kid Icarus either before, so I feel like it's gonna be something none of us could know. We're just gonna be something random.
And we're also assuming it's a Nintendo game. It might not be a Nintendo game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
I think it is a Nintendo game, just so we're clear.
Oh, most certainly.
It might not be. Actually, I think I saw the Nintendo Forecast video on it today, so shout out to him. He made a good point. Like if it was a Sony published project, they probably would have announced it already. So, I don't think Sony poached.
Although Sony and Microsoft have been keeping their cards closer to their chest lately.
Yeah, maybe they're taking another cue from Nintendo. So I mean, yeah, it's possible, right? This is what I think. I think there's no way in hell that Nintendo's not going to get some kind of iteration of Smash Bros. Ready for Switch 2. There's no way they're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is Sakurai's level of involvement. Right. I think the best case scenario for us, the fans, is that he is overseeing the next Smash Bros. Project. Maybe not 100%. Maybe it's really just an adaptation of Smash Ultimate, right? And it's just kind of stacking on top of it, which is safe. But also with Smash Bros, I think that's fine. Maybe an adventure mode would be nice if you don't want to get a little dangerous, right? But enough to make it feel new, but it's kind of still essentially retains the roster. And during this project, it doesn't require as much time or effort. He can also train up his protege, right? Whoever is going to be his successor. And that doesn't mean that he won't still have a supervisor role in the future, right? Like they can still fall back on Sakurai for future games. But this would be a part of that transition, right? And if that's the case, if he's not fully in on this game because they're just currently building on top of Ultimate, right? Then that does perhaps afford him time to work on something else. And maybe that something else is what he was alluding to in this video, right? Like we're making the assumption you can only be doing one thing at a time. I think we should stop assuming that. We assumed that he was working on the YouTube channel this entire time, but he was not. He got all that work done in a short span of time and is working on at least one game since then. So I there's that. But I'm gonna throw something else out at you guys. maybe I shouldn't say too much because I want to spoil my video for tomorrow. I still got stuff. I got a lot, but I want to go back and check. Right, I haven't done my research on this yet. Right, but I'm pretty sure that Sakurai talked about getting Kid Icarus Uprising ported multiple times throughout his YouTube channel. But here's what's crazy though. When we saw those videos, there was at least 2 times he mentioned it. We assumed that when we heard it a second time, that it was an update from the first time. But now that we know all of these were filmed together, it changes our perspective on what he was saying on Kid Icarus, including that this idea that he may have been campaigning, hoping someone would make Kid Icarus, because he all recorded at the same time. It wasn't like he was like thinking, oh, okay, so like I'm gonna, slowly campaign and hopefully someone does. It's like maybe he did that and just thought at some point over the next 2 years. But to me, kind of almost, in hindsight, again, I have to go back and check the quotes and look at it more specifically. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe he was just straight up teasing Kid Icarus, right? And so maybe there is a Kid Icarus remaster happening. And what's interesting about this is maybe he wants the Kid Icarus remaster to be happening because he's not making a Kid Icarus remaster. He is making a new Kid Icarus game for Switch 2. I literally I think this would be the best case scenario for us, because it would mean we get a Kid Icarus remaster, we get a new game from Sakurai, a next generation Kid Icarus game, and he still oversees the next Smash Brothers, and we still get that too. Like, obvious, am I asking for a lot here? I definitely am, but I don't think it's that crazy. I think the safest expectation though is we're getting just Smash Brothers, but I think there might be a little bit more to it than that.
Yeah, so. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't want to say that. Yeah, 100% that's definitely going to happen. But I wouldn't be like too shocked either if it did. Mad?
Yeah,
I think it makes like logical sense, like a ton of logical sense. Like, yeah, if you get a remaster going to hype up the new game.
Right, he wants to advertise his own project.
Yeah,
and so from that perspective, it makes even more sense. He's advertising his own game.
And yeah, like obviously he wouldn't do the remaster because he wouldn't be needed. Like he's not a programmer or developer. Like he doesn't,
Yeah, the blueprints already. He might oversee it, but that doesn't require that much time.
Right.
As long as that wasn't the plan until Bandai Namco went and canceled a bunch of projects recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we get both, but yeah, I saw that report and I immediately thought of Kid Icarus Uprising in the port.
Yeah, I think that's what we're afraid of, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll say that.
But you got to think that would do well, though.
that could have been any number of things.
Yeah.
You know how we always hear about random pitches, and
right. They never made it out. That's true.
It may have only been a few weeks old, or it may not, or even maybe they decided not to do it. But if Nintendo commissioned the project, they were still investing money to get something done. So if Bandai Namco can't do it, I assume there'd be some sort of refund, right? And they would take that money elsewhere to someone who would. So I don't think we should doom and gloom too much from that news, especially because we don't know what it is. But at the same time, it could have been, right? So we'll consider that. But
yeah, I mean, if Nintendo had commissioned to make the game, would they even have like the right to just cancel it without asking Nintendo to be like, actually, we don't want to make it. Screw you guys. Go find somebody else.
There would have been some kind of, contract that was signed where if they wanted to back out, these are the terms of them backing out or whatever the case is. But
all right, so I'm putting up a poll. What's Sakurai's new game? Smash, Kid Icarus sequel, Full Circle Return to Kirby.
I do feel like that one for me personally is the least likely. No, I just feel like it's the least likely. I guess
you're not into poetry then. All right.
I just like.
I do agree with you.
Doesn't make as much sense as the other ones.
He's not needed.
Yeah, like
they don't need him.
They're already on this new direction.
They already made the best Kirby game ever.
Yeah,
they've been making games without him for a long time.
I think Kirby's it's on a great path. I mean, without Sakurai. I don't think Nintendo puts
This
him
would
on
be
that.
worse than a Kevin Durant move.
Is he a basketball player?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm kind of throwing a jab at Kevin Durant because, I mean, Kevin Durant's cool, so I'm not really throwing shade, just a joke. But we go back at this point, what, 8 years ago, maybe longer, about that much around of time. Kevin Durant had gone to the conference finals, essentially like the top 4 of the NBA with his Oklahoma City Thunder, and lost to the Golden State Warriors, even though they had a really good opportunity to beat the Golden State Warriors, who were the heavy favorites. Essentially, like, had he played a little bit better, they would have won that series. He didn't play bad, but if he played a little bit better, they would have won that series. Golden State then goes on to lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then that offseason, Kevin Durant decides to join the Golden State Warriors, who he lost to just barely, to help them win one more game, which would have caused them to win the championship. And they did. They won a couple more that way. It wasn't needed. Golden State Warriors were already, like, they had a 73-win season. They were the winningest. They had the best regular season, like, record ever. They had won the year beforehand. It's kind of like Sakurai going to this team that just made the best Kirby game ever.
Yeah.
They don't need him. It would be purely just to ride the coattails of Forgotten Land, which
Right.
Sakurai can do so much more elsewhere. Now, unless they want to make something even bigger than Forgotten Land, if they want to turn into like a giant, massive, like, open world Kirby game or something crazy, that would be cool. But I think it falls under the less likely category.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Anyway, let me finish this poll. Smash Kid Icarus sequel, Full Circle Return to Kirby, Star Fox. I'll put parentheses or something else. All right. Let's see what you guys think, and let's move on to our final topic. In the meanwhile, Nintendo's worst kept secret, the MMO, which stands for Massive Multiplayer Online. For those who are unaware, the Nintendo Playtest has leaked. How? Well, the 10,000 people who signed up for are the leakers. So we've seen pictures. We haven't seen like gameplay of it yet. We've just seen some screenshots that Nintendo themselves literally shared to the 10,000 people that they asked to not share it to the world, but of course that didn't happen. And we got details, right? We learned that there's servers, right? They actually have servers for this. You jump in. The characters are like these cutesy looking like cavemen that have like electric tails. They're almost like cavemen, Flintstone, monkey, electric hybrids or something. You build stuff in this development center and you go out into this giant, dark, open world and you slowly expand and build your own areas that can establish beacons. And the higher up you are, the more the beacon expands your kind of area. But there's also kind of like the neutral area as well. And you're not just doing this by yourself. There are other people out there. It's kind of like this collective communal effort to expand your territory of this uncharted world. And that's kind of like a rough summary of what this game is. It's extremely interesting. It's Nintendo testing their online server. This is exclusive to expansion pack. Now there's just a playtest that's exclusive. So we don't know if the final game will be exclusive, but I kind of leaning towards it. At least would be free for expansion pack members. Maybe you could buy it if you don't have expansion pack, but that's kind of what this is. And to me, it just gets me thinking, oh, Nintendo's now messing with MMOs. Like, truly, this could extend beyond just whatever this is. But even just what this is interesting. What do you guys think?
I'm very curious what the core gameplay of this is, because like it sounds almost like survival crafting, maybe, or something to that extent. I'm very curious how this
There is
gonna
crafting
play.
and there is survival.
Right.
There is resource management that's mentioned. There are enemies that are mentioned.
I think this is something that I've been wanting Nintendo to do for a while, like make a survival crafting game. Like there's so many of them.
It's simple.
And
just so we're clear,
yeah,
it's not like super sophisticated.
Right. but like I feel like they should dive into that genre, and to make it an MMO is such a unique concept. I like the idea that they've gone with almost this like Helldivers idea where like you're working with other players instead of like in Helldivers you're trying to like free planets from different forces, and you actually like it's like an MMO in a sense that like everybody's progress works towards like each other. So in this is kind of the same where you're working together to expand like the territory that you can explore through this whole planet. I think it's a really cool concept that capitalizes on very big trends that are happening right now, and that I think aren't just like flash of the pan trends, but they're concepts that I think will be continuing to be popular moving forward. So I'm very curious to see exactly how this works out. I think it could be something that's really, really cool.
I'm excited.
I think so too. This is the wacky team, right? So Labo and Ring Fit and like a bunch of
four. Yeah.
It makes sense.
A bunch of stuff that, you know, is like the ultimate go get creative, basically fun from Nintendo. See what you bring us. This is cool because, not only like for the implications of Nintendo testing out their dedicated servers for this game and 10,000 players initially, and then obviously however many, are all on the same, like all on there at the same time past that. That's cool implications for probably what's to come in the future of NSO from a gameplay perspective of what's possible for Nintendo first party content. So that's cool to see. What's going to make or break it for me, honestly, obviously the game has to be fun and enjoyable, but I really want the character control to feel good. Sometimes these builder survival type games, inventory management, resource management, I can get into those if me just moving around my character within the world while I'm building feels fun, on point, and responsive. I almost want it to
almost looks like Fall Guys a little bit, which is concerning.
Right. So I want, even though it doesn't strike me at all at this point, I want my character to move like 3D Mario in Odyssey. You know what I mean?
Jumping. I'll say that.
But if there's like fun, like if you're building stuff with these like I don't know if you notice how vertical some of from the beacons. Super vertical.
I was thinking platforming might be
I got
part of
Game
this
Builder
game
Garage vibes, which EPD4 did make.
There you go, that too. And if they made it fun to like create the platforms from the top down, but then it's also fun to get from the top to the bottom, and like that part feels satisfying as well, and you're working together with other people and you see their characters all live in a real world. Like I think this could be really cool, but it could also not be cool, So like I'm really like 50,
I hope it's not
on
too
it right
simple now. And the gameplay is like really basic, and they lean more on the MMO concept to make it interesting. Like I hope the base gameplay is just good.
Same. And there's got to be, it sounds like it's a big, like large in scope. It doesn't necessarily look like that from the screenshots that were out there. But there's got to be a lot to do and kind of different styles to play. And then it's like
open world.
It sounds like it is because Nintendo literally made reference to a point that like, in case if you lose your beacon, like the way to get back to it is to warp. Like they acted like it's so like you're just not going to know where you're at a certain point in this game. And so, hey, we have a warp system to get you back. So that sounds like it's not going to be a small contained area.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely got the impression it's at least like semi-open world.
And I'm curious, like, what the environment is going to be like, right? Like, is it going to be just like simple stuff? Is it like auto-generated? Because they mentioned that you'll find new lands. And so does that mean like, who mentioned in the chat, we mentioned sounds like No Man's Sky, except No Man's Sky is like epic looking. Like, this is like.
This is going to look a lot more simple than No Man's Sky. That's for sure.
Yeah. But like, it would be cool though if we were exploring and we're uncovering like just different biomes and regions with different creatures and things. Like if there's that level of variety, that's going to make it exciting.
I do think it's probably going to be a generated, or at the very least, it's going to be randomized, like where the areas are. I imagine per server, like the world will be like pre-generated, but it'll be generated like.
That might be part of the experience.
I assume it will be I don't know. It may be something where there's like levels built out that can spawn, and then but it's kind of like random, and they can kind of mesh with each other in different ways, or it might just be like here's like assets that can happen, and they just generate it. I'm not sure, but I assume some sort of generation. That's not even the word I'm trying to think of, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like that will be part of it.
And
like,
on the user generated content front, it sounds like it's going to be pretty detailed and involved, because Nintendo made it super clear that like you have to go through all these like checklists of making sure you understand how to, you know, be responsible towards people and courteous, and they don't want to essentially, like, it sounded like you're going to be able to make stuff that's maybe inappropriate and or offensive
theoretically.
Yeah, like in theory, because you have to go through and answer 10 different questions or something before you like can publish something as user generated content. Pass a test. Yeah.
Can you be civilized for 5 minutes?
So that makes me think the creation system might be really in depth from the user end.
It might be Minecraft-esque.
Yeah, it might be initially the world is generated whenever you light your beacon at the top or something, but I think what you can actually do once you're in there is probably going to be pretty involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
it's promising.
I mean, Brent, you brought up how it might be like auto-generated, right? And maybe every server has a different auto-generated world. Right. And so maybe there are just different biomes that are kind of randomly like placed.
Like Minecraft again, in that sense.
Yeah, I don't play that much Minecraft, so I don't understand it as well as you do, perhaps.
Yeah, when you boot up a world, it's just there are biomes that can have like different things in them, and it just generates a new world that's completely different from anybody else's.
Maybe that's what it is. But at the same time, like if you're being plopped into a random part of the world, right? Then if everyone's also doing that and they're kind of creating their own structures in these different areas, like even if it's the same planet, if you have all these people creating their different structures on these different parts of the planet, every planet's going to be completely unique either way. But I think it'd be better if it is randomly generated, like you mentioned in Minecraft. I think that would make it more interesting. But like we did see, like there's like squares, right? Like cubes that you build and put together, which is very Minecraft, right? Like so you and to that end, like you might be able to just create a giant like mountain that spells a certain word that could be explicit. In theory, or it doesn't have to be words. It could be, images, right? Because giant statues of giant phallic symbols. Like I predict that will exist. Actually, I think that's probably one of the first things we're gonna see.
Almost certainly.
Just as fast as the game leaked with its 10,000 internal test users, it's gonna devolve straight into all the stuff Nintendo doesn't want to see on their servers.
Remember with Tears of the Kingdom how someone created like a Burning Man, except he had a giant schlong and then it blew up?
I saw that. That blew up online pretty quick.
And that came out like day 1 or 2. Like that was one of the first creations that went viral. So
people can make phallic-looking things. They will. Similar. They just will.
This is a Nintendo game. Oh yeah, we can pull it off.
That's right.
Yeah, but they might get reported though. I mean, you see now how like Nintendo's been really weird about this game. Like, they're not letting us talk about it, or we can talk about it.
So I had heard, and I assume
not even blurred footage is okay.
Yeah, I heard that they had made people sign an NDA when they signed up.
That was just the wrong terminology. It was just so there was like a thing you have to accept, and the thing you have to accept says we ask that you don't share or post about this playtest online on different websites. It's literally like more or less what it said. Somebody that was a bigger account on Twitter used the term NDA, and I know a lot of people saw NDA and ran with it, but there's zero legal binding to anything Nintendo did to that.
That makes sense why it leaked. I'm not sure why they're surprised.
And even if it was an NDA, 10,000 users from all regions across the world, you're not going to control all that. If they don't have like a vested interest to like, you know, like if they're worried about their relationship with Nintendo, that's one thing. But a lot of people in that 10,000 are not going to be worried about their relationship with Nintendo, you know, and they're probably not going to come after 1,000 people that broke NDA individually. Maybe they would, but I have a question for you guys on this front, because I've been wondering about this, because it does seem to reference in the setup of the game that you're kind of like communicating with other players quite a bit. And it doesn't, I mean, there's something called connects points, which are kind of like, the more you work together with people in their world and stuff, you're earning points, and that's like a social score that's literally leveling up in the game. I wonder if this thing's going to have, like, if you have a microphone, if you can just hear who's around you, or in your, maybe
proximity chat.
Yeah, proximity chat, or at least in your beacon, whoever's in your beacon, if you're working together on something.
That would be huge. I mean, it's hard to be confident in Nintendo putting even basic voice chat into a game, because I don't think they've ever done that in the official Nintendo
text
game.
Chat. At least they talk about communicating with other players a lot.
I mean, maybe they are, because I do think with the Switch 2, there's a chance that they'll push the online, and then maybe they don't even need to wait for Switch 2, but
because
like voice chat, I feel like is something they should push for, so maybe that is something they're testing as well.
I'm willing to bet there's at least a message system, but I feel like the message system might be pretty limited.
Could be like pre-selected words that you can string together or whatever. That's kind of what I was thinking, but they really went out of their way, not only for like the creation part, but also on the communication part. How you communicate with other players needs to be respectful, and that players can report you. Like, it just sounded like they were maybe one foot in the door on some kind of more open communication.
But I also feel like Nintendo says not to that extent, but I kind of feel like when it just comes to multiplayer games in general, like, hey, don't be rude to people.
That's
like, all right,
they definitely have that stance.
My job is to shoot people. I'm gonna shoot them. Maybe I'll shoot them less hard. I don't know, but so I agree though that there is going to be a greater level of communication than what we've come to expect from Nintendo published titles. But given that they don't have like a really nice headset solution for Switch, nothing super elegant, I kind of just don't expect that to be part of this. I mean, maybe they could integrate the Switch app, but who's going to use that?
Yep.
I know Fortnite has headset support. I don't know exactly how it works.
Bluetooth headsets, or just Bluetooth in general, like for headphones, is supported now. You can plug in a headset with a mic, and it should theoretically work.
But only in portable mode, because
you can just plug in if you have a USB mic, or even if you have a headphone jack mic, you can just plug it in dock mode.
Well, like distance-wise, you would have to have like some kind of adapter or something to make that work in docked mode.
Well, yeah, if it's plugged in,
like standing, like.
But the Switch does support wireless Bluetooth headphones. Does it not support?
I've used Bluetooth on my Switch.
A good question.
And there was a lot of delay. I don't know if it was just the Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. I refuse to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is I when I'm in docked mode, and sometimes I'm playing on my monitor, so my fiance can play on like the bigger TV. And so she has her audio going, and I don't mind having it in my headset, but I'll put a wired pair of like the old AirPods, whatever Apple called them, and I have a long cable that plugs into the headphone jack on my Switch when it's on the floor on the dock, because I refuse to use the Bluetooth just due to latency. I will press a button and hear it happen later. Like, it's just not, stuff like that bothers me big time. So it's not even like in the realm of possibility for me to game like that. But I don't know about the Bluetooth support with microphones, but I know as far as like how Fortnite and other games do it, I think like it's just like if you have the ability to have a microphone, or like if you have one hooked up to your console, you're just in their game server and game chat just works like however they handle it internally. So Nintendo has a lot of games that technically have voice chat enabled on their platform. They just don't do it from their first party perspective. So.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if there's a headset you can plug in, then sure, we'll see what they do, but I'm not expecting it.
Yep, possible.
Yeah. But I feel like I don't know, is there anything else you guys want to kind of bring up? It's very interesting. When do you think this is coming out publicly?
Next year.
Yeah, next year.
Some people think that this is just a test. The game's is never going to come out. It's just meant to
mask something bigger. I've seen
Yeah.
that too. No, I think that at the very least, it might be to mask some, or it might be for a bigger reason of like testing their MMO capacity and servers. I buy into that part, but the game's not just like a front for that. I don't think, like, the game is meant to be a additional feature for expansion pack members, and maybe like a purchasable thing, like you said earlier, Andres, for non-expansion pack members. Like, this is meant to generate some kind of revenue and interest for Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be something where it's like, well, these 10,000 people can play it, and then we're never going to release it. Nobody else gets to touch it. It's only for these 10,000 folks. It's for something else. Like,
well, and they
even if it is
for
ultimately for something else, like they do projects toward something else all the time. Like Wind Waker HD was a big test for Zelda on Wii U and different things that they can do.
It can be both.
Yeah, it can be both.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, they're putting servers together here, right? Like, so this could be big news for just Nintendo's online multiplayer games in general, right? Like, this could be like the building block towards better online for Smash Brothers.
And maybe it doesn't come out till the Switch 2 comes out, because it does have voice chat support and stuff, but maybe it's only supported very well on Switch 2. I think you would be able to plug a mic into Switch 1 and still use it, but maybe since the Bluetooth is so bad on Switch, it would be more like, hey, like, we're doing voice chat much more with
it would be another
2.
selling point on Switch 2. Like, you can still technically do it on Switch 1, but it's a lot more elegant on Switch 2. But going back to my point, like, you know, this could be setting us up for just better online play on Switch 2. Like, not just for like Smash Bros. Like not lagging, but like, imagine in the Splatoon game, this is something a bit bigger than just 8-player, right? Like, what if they do kind of go for like a battle royale sort of setup, but, you know, Splatoonified, obviously, right? Or maybe they do have an MMO in the works. We've always speculated that Monolith Soft is maybe working on an MMO, but possibly, or like we've kind of want them to do that, right? You look at what they did with Xenoblade X, and it had some MMO qualities because you could play with others, but passively. Like, what if the next game isn't passive, you know? Or maybe it doesn't even necessarily have to be like 50, 100 people in one server. It could even just be your party members playing a game together, right? Like, imagine like a 4-player cooperative open world game. Like, them testing their servers now could have that kind of level of implication where they're just going to have more games in general that are doing more significant, more strenuous things online. And when I think about this, I think this kind of also complements my theory that Nintendo with the Switch 2 is going to make a really strong bid towards more third-party support from AAAs. It's also part of the reason why I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a big deal early on, because they want to use that game to help bring in a lot of the audience that is on PlayStation or Xbox, like that Western audience, right? I think it's also going to factor into having Call of Duty on the console as well, and your 2Ks and things of that nature. And so if Nintendo has a more elegant online solution with messaging and a headset, you know, essentially parity with PlayStation and Xbox, doesn't have to be as good, but good enough to people who are not complaining about it, right? We're like, okay, this gets the job done, right? And then
get rid of friend codes. Like, let me be able to search a name on my Switch and send a friend request.
I think you're getting a little bit too overzealous there.
We have usernames for Nintendo accounts. Aren't they? Isn't it like, if you get your username and somebody else tries to get it, it's taken?
I'm pretty sure.
So then, you know what I mean? Like, it's already there. Like,
why make us use this
like we just, like, the fact that you have to find somebody through the friend code when you actually already have a username system is preposterous.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope Nintendo fixes that.
I want to be able to send, like, I want to be able to message my friend, send an invite through a game.
You should have an invite.
Like all these kind of things.
An invite system, a message system, a onboard voice chat that is not game specific. You're just chatting while you're in your home menu, while you're booting up what you're going to play. You shouldn't have to be in the same game to chat with each other. It's not how people game anymore.
I think what Nintendo's terrified of are those random messages that you get on PlayStation. Like, I've seen random weirdo messages and I'm like, who is this person? Why do you want my credit card information? Or
I just don't understand
why are
why
you
Nintendo...
in love with me and I've never met you before?
I don't understand why Nintendo feels like they need to be the protector of children. Like, they have parents. You have
Well,
parental controls.
First of all, parental controls, because I get that argument, but I also just think like, and maybe it's like we were talking about at the beginning of the show where Nintendo just does things so differently it doesn't make any sense. But when you have parental controls built into the system where you could just disable voice chat or any kind of messaging out of the gate, that's one thing. And then the other thing is, and just like you can enable parental controls on the eShop, the games that are being sold on the eShop are anything but family friendly. A lot of them on the front page. So it's like the family friendly argument only goes so far before you're like, okay, why is, I get it with having real people involved with messaging people that is on a family friendly platform. Like obviously it could be a dicey situation for Nintendo, but if they don't want to do it, all they have to do is enable Discord to be utilized by their next gen system. And then if that app has full support and integration, then they've won that battle too, and they're not even responsible for anything. Discord's handling all that,
Yeah, I do think that is potentially a really good way for them to go. Because we've already seen on Xbox and PlayStation updated now, you don't even need to use your phone anymore. You can just boot Discord through your PlayStation and Xbox.
That's what people want, because PC gamers have used it for forever, and it would be awesome to see Nintendo implement it. But that's like that. Talk about like stuff I don't think they'll do. I would be shocked if we'll actually see them support Discord next gen. But
dreams can come true.
It is a very non-Nintendo thing, but it is one of those things where I feel like, maybe with the new leadership, Nintendo looks at that and they go, actually multiplayer gaming is a huge thing. And if we want to bring in the audience that plays, obviously they have Fortnite and things, and they'll have Call of Duty, but if they really want the audience who plays Fortnite and Call of Duty to move to Nintendo fully, then I think they need that multiplayer. Because if you boot up Call of Duty on Switch and you have to do some bullshit to talk to your friends and in voice chat, people aren't going to want to play that version nearly as much.
The more hoops, the better. It's part of the experience. Anyway, I think it's about time we wrap things up. So we're done with the topics. I'll just open things up for a few more questions to close out. So those in the chat, throw it at us. We'll be on for another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll call it a night. Well, I let some questions roll in. I will. Actually, I see this here. This is interesting. Marco Tribe said earlier in the chat, as someone who really wants the Sakurai game to be Smash, I guarantee you it's not. I'm just kind of curious, what makes you offer up a guarantee that it's not Smash? And I'm not saying you're wrong. First off, I stand by the point that there will be another Smash Bros. Game. There's no way Smash Bros. Is not in development now. I'd be totally flabbergasted. But that doesn't mean Sakurai's project that he was teasing is Smash Brothers. They can be two separate things, because maybe he's not needed as much, or maybe he's just doing two different projects. Both are possible. But I'm just kind of curious, why you're so sure that what he's teasing is not Smash.
Yeah, because I feel like if anybody, most people, I feel like if they had to bet, would bet on Smash, not against it.
Yeah. Omar David asks me, still Team 2024? Still Team 2024. I get how uncomfortable it may be to be on Team 2024 right now. But the fact of the matter is, there was a window of time that we expected the Switch 2 to be revealed. And we're still in that window of time. It's towards the end of that window of time, so I understand why you might feel more uncomfortable. But I would argue that the odds of Switch 2 being revealed haven't really diminished yet, because it may have been the case Nintendo always had it in mind for this point in time, and that it's by their shareholders meeting November 5th. So that's go on.
Sorry, real quick.
No, go for it.
The Switch reveal in 2016 was exactly 1 week before their investors meeting. So for that year in 2016. So I like next week personally. And here's the thing. I know everybody wants to act like, oh, every Nintendo YouTuber completely said September's happening. And while I don't think the information was presented like that, it is valid. I was never on Team September for a reveal. And then all that stuff with the directs happened. And I was just like,
have you been attacked for the September stuff?
I'm trying to think of how many times I've seen it. It's been enough to be like, wow, like somebody's like, well, no. What it is, here's the common theme I see. I see people acting like because September's passed, that all the credibility of any insider that we may have paid attention to or leaks that have been put out there is completely out the window. And it's like all called into question because it didn't happen in September. And
I think there's misinterpretation of the information.
That's what I think too.
Yeah. So like I predicted September 19th, right? That was a prediction. It's no different than when we do our Nintendo Direct predictions. Yeah. They're like, oh, maybe they'll finally show off Metroid Prime 2, right? Like, but I never said 100% definitively it's going to happen in September. I just think it will based off what's going on. But October is always still possible. And I think what happens is that a lot of people, they see headlines, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to like read into the detail, right? And they just think, "Oh, there's leaks." Well, there are leaks, but they're not. There's no leak that's like, "Hey, this is happening on such and such date." I mean, there are, but those are kind of like the wacko, funny rumor things, right? Like,
right. Like, I mean, the leaks weren't even necessarily about the Switch 2. It was about things happening that could affect the announcement because it was weird that it was happening. Like, I don't even recall a specific leak that said that Switch 2 was going to be announced in September. It was just people interpretation of the different things that were happening.
There's
like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
There's a very "what have you done for me lately" kind of thought process on the internet. Like, people quickly forget what happened right before. And what happened right before all of this was, hey, there's going to be a partner. Well, I talked about there being most likely a partner showcase happening at the end of August.
I was on the same page with you on that. Not necessarily the timing of August. I didn't think we were going to get a September Direct if the reveal was happening this year. Like, I thought
it was going to be September until Brazil reported a Direct to happen in August. Then I was like, all right, and that was all spot on. And so, but people forget about that. They're like, oh no, it's all fake. Mm-hmm. None of it ever comes true. Not like
and him saying multiple presentations, and what do we see? A museum direct, multiple presentations being moved up towards the end of August, and we see a museum direct and then a partner showcase and combined in the same presentation with an indie world,
which is insane.
And to predict that in August sounds like you're crazy if you're going off of any kind of prior track record. So to now all this miss that. And Brazil has been pretty transparent in like he would be shocked if it doesn't happen this year. It doesn't mean that he doesn't think Nintendo could have internally shifted something, but everything that he's been hearing and all of his sources have been good up to this point in time still suggest a 2024 reveal.
Yeah. So also, some people like to point to when he talked about there being a Direct in April. When he talked about that, he said there could have been changes, and eventually did tell us, "Hey guys, sorry, but
beforehand, he told us before April was done, hey, this was old info." Or it's come to my attention that this was outdated information at the time I shared it.
That hasn't happened for the Switch 2 stuff yet, right? So that's still in play. We have the Circa and Toto stuff. We have the no Direct in September, which hasn't happened in 8 years. Paul Gill heard that a trailer was filmed. Nate the Hate doesn't want to put everything on the line, but he said he's heard something similar, but doesn't want to fully verify.
There's a lot of information that seems to confirm that manufacturing to some level has started.
Yeah, well, that's actually another thing that I didn't talk about in my video today, but this Nin Spider little doodle thing that seems to support that Chinese leak, right? That was suggesting manufacturing is going on, like ramping up, right? So it's just kind of like there are these like signs. They don't tell us a specific date. It suggests something's brewing. And I'll also point out, while both Andy Robinson and Chris String have definitely been up to some Twitter shenanigans, and I think we should definitely be careful. I covered it, so I'm at fault for even like talking about it. I mean, I don't think I should be at fault for talking about it because we're going to talk about it. But did I let myself get a little excited? Oh yeah, I did. Never promised that what it was, but we definitely talked about it, and it meant nothing. But I don't think, and they didn't make a report on it either, right? Which we did acknowledge when we talked about it. But they have told us that they did hear about murmurings of something happening soon. Now, they weren't convinced it was September. Maybe it's October, right? Obviously, we don't know. Point is, yeah, I'm still on Team 2024 until we get to that shareholders meeting. And Sunbro, you brought up a really, really interesting point. I want to go back and check the logic you used behind the NX trailer happening a week before the shareholders meeting. I think we actually used a similar logic to predict that there was going to be a Switch 2 announcement before this year's shareholders meeting back in May. And that was we were 100% on that, right? So I got to go back and check the dates, right?
Yeah.
But
I think if what I saw online was right, which I would have to go verify it also, but
right.
I think that's legitimately when they held their investors meeting in 2016 was a week after the reveal of the first look at Nintendo Switch. So.
Yeah, and there's nothing going on next week either.
Nope.
Except
this playtest was the only thing that kind of filled up this week, and then
I would argue that it shouldn't
Nintendo's
count.
not even letting Nintendo's not even letting people talk about it. But I think they do know it's going to get some coverage, right? Because it's obvious. I mean, maybe they didn't. Maybe they really thought that 10,000 people would keep their mouths shut, but obviously that's not going to happen.
They're being like they're working hard to like cover this up than they are for the art book leak for Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, that's interesting. True.
So I don't know. One thing I'll mention though, this goes back to why I put Donkey Kong in the thumbnail. Donkey Kong's the last game that we have a date for. That can't be the last game we know about before 2024 is up. If you want to be on Team 2025 for Switch 2 reveal or Team 26 or Team Never, I don't agree with that, but it's fine. Fact matter is, though, Nintendo announcements still need to happen. That's still got to happen. So, we're going to get news on some kind of Nintendo game probably before the shareholders meeting. Because you're not going to make those announcements like during Black Friday or Christmas shopping. You're going to do it before. So, something's happening. I will now end this poll. Got 77 votes in. I haven't seen the number. Okay, so was Sakurai's new game? No surprise, Smash won at 45%. However, Kid Icarus sequel started off in third place, but it rose up to second place. 27% have selected the Kid Icarus sequel. Third place, Star Fox or something else, 23%, and then a full circle return to Kirby, 3%. Now, you might think that the Kirby game lost pretty bad, but I will remind you all that last week we put a poll up for what the playtest is. And I got made fun of a little bit last week when I said, what if it's a new game? A new game we get to play in a playtest program. And I suggested as an option in the poll. And that poll option was the least picked option. It only got like 13% or something like that. But it won. It was even though it was least picked, it was the win. It was the ultimate winner because it's what actually happened. Actually, and on that note, let me ask you, Sunbro. Since this playtest program is not GameCube related, do you still think the GameCube smoke means something?
Yes, and I think it's going to be Nintendo's. I've always, until this playtest program, I've always been in the mindset that they won't release it on the current gen Switch. Then with the controller stuff lining up and the timing around it, I was like, maybe they do, especially considering we didn't have a September Direct where a lot of times they reveal something big for NSO because they want to get people to renew around the time that they launch the service. Well, it turned out to be Banjo-Tooie in a playtest. But anyway, I still think that GameCube is something that's going to for sure hit the service. I think it'll be into the Nintendo Switch 2's life cycle. I hesitate to say it'll be towards the beginning, but there is some kind of like hope that we would see it as soon as a February Direct. If we know about the console at that point in time, the February Direct, just like we got the Game Boy family of systems announced, it they have a GameCube section in there. I think it's possible, but I don't know if it's going to happen that early on to the life cycle of the Switch 2. But Nintendo, knowing that they're going to have a lot of new people getting that console and they're going to be deciding between a base membership and a expansion pack tier, they might also want to come out of the gate guns blazing with something like GameCube, a killer app to get people to have the expansion pack tier. Hopefully they don't create a third tier for it, but they just might. That's $70 annually. And, you know, they literally, that's the direction they go for towards launch. So I haven't lost any hope that GameCube's coming to NSO, but I think that controller that they're seeing shipping data of is likely a GameCube wireless NSO controller, just like they do with every other home console that hits the service. It's just a question of when, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, to be honest, I love the N64, but it doesn't have the biggest lineup of games to draw from. So eventually they're going to run out of titles that people care about. And when you're charging like money for an extra expansion service, like you need titles that people care about to buy the service. And obviously they can do things that they've been doing with the DLC packs and stuff that they've thrown for free, but that can't be the only thing that draws people to the service. So I do think that GameCube is going to be something that they need to do, you know, maybe not at launch, but, you know, not too far into Switch 2 life cycle, you know, a few years at the most.
Yeah. Coming back to the chat, Super Gaming added me. When do you think Switch 2 will first be revealed most likely? We kind of just talked about it. I want to listen. October 29th is my birthday. I don't normally talk about my birthday. I mentioned in a video a few days ago, and then people were like, "Oh, how dare you talk about your birthday? You're so self-absorbed." I literally like hide my birthday on my social media so people don't know about it sometimes, right? But I just thought it was funny because it seems to like maybe be a possibility. Is my birthday literally 7 days before the shareholders meeting? It is.
Nice.
So Sunbro is actually predicting that it's on my birthday, right?
So lining up.
And actually, Bo is also predicting that it's on my birthday as well. So
yeah, I'll go ahead and predict it too. Let's all predict. Let's go.
Imagine
birthday Switch 2 reveal. Oh my god.
That ultimate gift from Nintendo to you.
Yeah,
that'd be crazy. The 29th.
That would be crazy. Nintendo does love me, even if they did block my video yesterday. Yeah. It was nothing personal, I'm sure. I hope. Yeah. Checking with the chat here, Connor asked me, wait before you end it. If I have a question, do you think Sakurai could reveal a remake of Kirby Triple Deluxe, Kirby Planet Robot, or Kirby Air Ride? Of those three, the one that I think Sakurai has if there's any chance that Sakurai would even like be a part of mentioning, would be Kirby Air Ride, because he worked on that game. I don't think he worked on Triple Deluxe or Planet Robot. Those were made by HAL after Sakurai left, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I don't think Sakurai himself is going to be announcing a Kirby game though, regardless. But Kirby Air Ride, there's a small chance. I could see a scenario where like maybe someday Kirby Air Ride is just like maybe it's just for GameCube NSO, right? Like I think it's a high, that's probably where we'll see it, GameCube NSO, not like remastered. Yeah. But if it is remastered, it would probably just be announced in Nintendo Direct, and then Sakurai on social media be like, "Hey, I made that." And that would be it.
Yeah, because it's probably just gonna be some small little like eShop title. Like I doubt a Kirby Air Ride remasters would might not even get a physical edition. To be honest, like I don't think people are gonna be running to the stores to buy that. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah,
I have heard a lot of people want that game. I have heard actually a lot of people in different various YouTube comments when various like Nintendo projects to get remastered, Kirby Air Ride does come up surprisingly often.
Yeah. Right now I want to look up the Nintendo shareholder meetings. By the way, who was it that asked me in the chat? I think someone was asking when was the Switch 1 reveal? It was October 20th, 2016. Yeah, Nintendo Scarlet was asking. They gave him a 2 for already answering that question. So trying to find. So I want to go back to 2016. Will it let me? Yeah, it will. Looks like. I think. So we'll be looking at fiscal year ending in 2017, right? That would cover the 2016 announcements, right?
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, if it ending in 2017, because it ended March 2017, so it would cover, yeah. So it'd be April 2016 to March 2017.
Okay, well, what I'm on is not sharing me all the dates. It's just sharing me the 77th annual shareholder meeting. I might have to take more time to look this up and not just do it here. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to look it up later. Because whenever you go on the website, there's all these different things.
Yeah, it's hard to find exact dates on that website. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm literally just trying to find like the dates of each one. Like I can see the recent stuff more easily, right? Like what's new. They're telling us that the shareholders meeting's on the 5th. Scrolling back to at least this year, the shareholders meeting was on the 7th, and they made the announcement like of the Switch 2 on the 7th, right? Like Nintendo confirmed.
Yeah, it was May 7th.
Okay. Anyway, I don't think I could scroll back all the way to 2016 on this. Can I? Will it let me? How far back can I go? Actually, all right, I'm gonna share on the screen. This is the last thing we're gonna do, and then we're gonna call it a night. Just look this up together real quick. You guys see this? So it looks like it will let me go all the way. This is literally everything that they posted. Am I going? Yeah, I am going back year by year. This is faster. Fiscal year ending in 2017. Okay. So the shareholders meeting. So the 6th month financial results briefing was November 1st, 2016. Right?
Right.
And so the NX reveal was October 20th. That seems like more than a week.
That is more than a week. What is that? Almost 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I would then have to check my calendar.
So I'm trying to go back on mine.
All right, so 2016 October. So October 20th was less than 2 weeks. It was like 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the general time frame, right?
Yeah. Right. So I mean, maybe there's not like an exact. I mean, there shouldn't be either way, right?
Yeah. If anything, I wouldn't expect it to be an exact. But you know, leading into an investors briefing, they're able to take questions about their successor console at that said investors briefing. It would make sense to reveal it before then. If they were like, I'm fully off Team 2024 if we get to November 5th and we didn't see a console reveal.
Yeah, I'm on Team February at the earliest.
Same.
Reveal. I mean, maybe late January, but that feels like hopium. Yeah. And so what's interesting is that, let's say we get a reveal this Thursday. That would be... Okay, so on a Tuesday, it would be 7 days. Sunday, it would be 11 days. Friday, 30. It would be 14. No, my brain's messing up here. That's wrong. It would be 12 days. Right? Yeah, it'd be 12 days. Which is not too different from 10 if it's this week, if it's towards the end of this week, right? So we could have an announcement tomorrow for Thursday, or announce it for Thursday for Friday. But I don't want to set up the expectation of us, oh, is it going to be today? Is it going to be like, I'm not at that point anymore, right? Like I was on like the 18th or 19th, but that was it. Like, like now, I'm just kind of like, all right. I'm not like refreshing Nintendo's Twitter. Are they about to drop it? I might check like, you know, my notifications, you know, like once, like after 6 or something. But that's it. So I wouldn't worry if when it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't happen, then we're in for an interesting couple months.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the night. I will point out that Netweed09 has become a YouTube member. Welcome, buddy. Glad to have you. And it is R3 Light 3, or not 3, just is R3 Light has renewed their membership of 8 months. Glad to have you. Thank you guys for renewing your memberships. Thank you for everyone watching. Thank you for the likes, the comments. It's been fun. Please make sure to check out Sunbro's YouTube channel. It is linked in the description below. It's an amazing Nintendo channel, so definitely check them out. But that's it. We're done. Have a great night, guys.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.